Good evening and welcome to round 5 of the FSR World Championship from Montreal, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, built in 1976 and a mainstay of the FSR calendar, a track that everybody enjoys and one that normally provides great action. Myself, Thomas Mundy, here to commentate for you this evening. Jong hopefully will be joining us a little later on. We're in practice at the moment. The race has been slightly delayed due to the fact that Grid 2 for the FSR Pro Series, the third series in FSR, only finished about 10-15 minutes ago. So they've done a very quick turnaround here to get the server restarted and reset and all the race settings set up for the World Championship race. And they're now in practice at the moment, so just giving the drivers a chance to get settled into the circuit. It gives us a chance to talk about the circuit a little bit. We've not got many corners here. Remember we were talking about at Imola we had named corners. There's just a couple. The turn 2 and 3 section is known as the Virage Senna. You've got the Concorde corner, which Johnny Simon is just coming down to now actually in practice. This is the Concorde corner, a very interesting corner that you'll see some people cutting across the inside curb there a little bit. And then through the next corner, very easy to hit the wall on the exit of that. You've then got the pits hairpin, which is so because that's where the pits used to be many years ago. They moved them due to health and safety reasons. So the pits hairpin there at the far end of the track, and then the casino, well, it's pretty much a straight now. Used to be a chicane there. You may remember those who were watching Formula 1 in the 90s many years ago, but that's gone now. And so instead of the casino chicane, it's just the straight really that's referred to as casino. And then down, of course, to the final corner, which hasn't really got a name, but of course it does have the name for the Wall of Champions on the exit of that, which I'm fairly sure we'll see a few of the drivers whack today at some point. From watching the Ace and Pro races, we've certainly seen some great action. What we've also seen is drivers very close together, so expect to see that again at some point during this race. We expect qualifying to be very close. In fact, the times in practice at the moment, the top 10 separated by 0.8 of a second. A few things of note. David Greco is back this weekend for Twister Racing. He will be racing this weekend. Atse Kirchhoff is appearing for Go Speed, which is crucial for that team. The Portuguese team at the moment only have they have very few points. They've got one, and they down in 9th in the constructor standings. So having Kirchhoff there, that might be a big lift for that team. Blair Disley driving the other car. Ville Lepela is driving for Aventa SimRacing. But now he has moved in between races. He now will have that slot permanently alongside Dejan Kostadinov in the Aventa SimRacing team. So that will be interesting to watch as the season goes on. Send your questions through to me if you just put Ask Commentator, as some people were doing in the YouTube chat. The hashtag Ask Commentator, and I'll pick up as many of those questions as I can. It'll help to keep the conversation going and make it know that I'm not just got myself for company this evening. So then Morgan Moran, fastest in practice. I think we are about to move to qualify. We've seen this weekend, of course, it's a very short pit lane here. 12 to 14 seconds is all you lose, so we may see some more pit stops. It's unlikely that the drivers will be running the tyres down to the canvas this weekend. They certainly won't be pushing them all the way because it's just faster to pit more often. So probably going to see 3-stop races, I should imagine, from most people. That's certainly what many were predicting coming into this weekend. It's interesting to see that Bonahuis is really not very fast at the moment in practice, but I'm sure he'll pick that up as we now go into Q1. And we're looking at who's going to be the first to leave the pits, and there's a bit of a rush to get out on the starting grid. They're all queuing up there at the end of the pit lane, waiting for the lights to go green. Of course, the tyres cooling down as they do that, so we'll see how that goes. There's a few drivers trying to steal a march on the inside there. They're going to have to get back down into single... there was a bit of collision there. They're going to have to get down into single file again and sort themselves out before they get down to the corner, because it's quite a narrow pit exit, and you're not allowed, of course, to go across the white line in any official session. None of them do. But that's the way it is, of course, in FSR and in most motorsports. You're not allowed to cross the white pit line on exit. Purely because, of course, it's there for health and safety reasons. It's there to prevent drivers colliding together. In the old days, drivers just used to cut across and cut the nose off other drivers, and it really was quite dangerous. So we don't have that anymore, and that's to prevent collisions, which is nice. So all these drivers then trying to find some space on track as they go on their outlaps. Hopefully we'll see some really good lap times. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know what you guys think on the chat, but will Morgan Moran be able to hold on to his fastest time? Will he be able to get pole position again? He's got all 4 pole positions so far this year. Can he take 5 out of 5? Of course, he didn't win last time out. That privilege went to Martin Gosby in the Twister Racing black car. So that'll be interesting to see this weekend how Gosby gets on. He was 10th in practice, actually, so not so good. But we'll see if he can pick that up during the qualifying sessions and the race. So let's just see how they get on. With regard to the question, we've had our first question of the day, how can you get the TV display like they have on R-Factor 2? Well, I will find out that for you at the end of the broadcast, and I'll let you know before we close the broadcast tonight, because I know that a certain man that our cameraman will know, Sam Jones, and I'm no doubt he'll give me the answer later on as to where you can get that TV display from. He is our cameraman, he sorts out all the graphics and keeps our eye on the track. But we will have that answer for you later on, so we'll see if we get that and maybe even give you a download link. So the first drivers then on their lap. And Martin Gosby was quickest in the first sector so far from the guys that have gone through it. Bonoquis, strangely, a 10th slower through that first sector. Just trying to see who else. I'd say Kirchhoff has now lit up the timing screens with a purple sector in sector 1. We've just had the answer to our question. Apparently it's an FSR display that we have that's made our race director, Edouard Mayaki. So it's not available for the public at the moment. It might be in the future. You have to cross your fingers for that. I'd say Kirchhoff, interestingly, has gone fastest in sector 2 as well. Bonoquis is having a very leisurely lap. There's a good 4/10ths down on Kirchhoff at the moment. And he's not looking very fast, it has to be said, this weekend. It's been a struggle for Bono, as Jack Heatley blazed down the first lap time with a 1:18.177, and it's now 1:17.5 from Bono. That's a pretty fast lap time, but I think we are going to see faster than that. We were expecting 1:16. Martin Gosby immediately goes 4/10ths quicker with a 1:17.128, and now the lap times are coming through, and Bonoquis is falling down the grid very quickly. He's down to 5th now. Kirchhoff actually was very slow in that final sector and only managed a 1:17.293. Lepler has gone very close to Gosby, but Bonoquis is down to 5th out of only 11 so far that have run through, so that's not a particularly good lap time. David Greco has just done an excellent first sector of a 21.701. Let's see where he goes towards the end. Morgan Moran is on a lap. It's not a fastest lap at the moment. He is slower than Gosby through the sectors that he's done, but we'll see if he can improve as he goes towards the start-finish line. And Morgan Moran actually went into 6th place with a 1:17.367. So Jim Paresis is currently fastest. The 2 Twister Racing black cars at the top are expecting to see 1:16s at some point, very close to that with a 17.099. Moran 1:17.367 a bit further down. Bonoquis and Ivar Calamies both on the bubble at the moment at the edge of the top 10. They will not be pleased with that. So we're seeing actually that Antonio Collerit in front of them. So an interesting start session. Really seeing some surprises early on here. The Ash Racing boys, unfortunately, not having a good time. Machuli and Alberts, they're both off the pace at the back as it currently stands. But we'll see if they can improve as the race goes on. John-Eric Saxon racing again for the Chronic Racing team this weekend. He'll be there. Peter Helmbro as well appearing for them this weekend. But it looks like Ville Lepler. It's amazing that we've got top 4 here at the moment. Greco in 4th place, Paresis in 1st, separated by just 700ths of a second. It goes to show that things are very, very close here this weekend. That's what we were expecting. It's a track where every little corner counts, but there really isn't a lot in it. It's a track where the times are always very close. In fact, we've got 1 second separating 1st to 15th, but the Precision stable are not looking good here this weekend. I have to say this is a shock. The GT Omega boys are 14th and 15th. This is poor. Very poor from them. Van Starkenberg and Keithley down there. Bonoquis and Ivar Calamies, maybe they just haven't had the time to practice this weekend or whatever, but it's really a struggle for them at the moment. Looking at Bonoquis, he's on an outlap at the moment, is Bono, so we'll see if he can improve that time. I think he's had to abandon one of his laps as well. So he went for a second lap, but wasn't able to improve because he had to abandon that lap. So it's not looking fantastic for him at the moment. And you would imagine that people can improve. Kirk, the first man into the 116s, goes fastest with a 1:16.804, and that's an excellent lap. And, well, we see Morgan Moran down in 7th, Bono Huis down in 9th. What's going on? Really is surprising at the moment. And, well, we're seeing a few guys on laps now. I'm going to be keeping my eye out on Moran and Huis to see if they can push themselves out of that boundary. It would be amazing to think that Bono Huis might possibly go out in Q1, but he's down to 10th now as Berliak has popped up into the top 10. So Bono needs a faster lap. This has to be a faster lap from Bono. Let's see what the first sector is. Remember, the fastest first sector was Morgan Moran, now goes into the 16s as well, up to 2nd, so he's got no worries. That should easily put him through into Q2, but Bono Huis needs to improve. He's got to have a good lap here. We know that he can respond under pressure, though, and it's pretty clean so far through this first sector. Let's see the first sector. It's 21.759. That's very good. It's not the fastest we've seen, but it's good. And he hopefully can continue this. He's very wide, though. Just about manages to keep it on track. But it was a wide line there as he now heads down towards the end of Sector 2 and down towards the pits hairpin. Second sector's a 24.8. It's okay. It's not going to put him fastest, we know that, but it should hopefully put him a bit higher up. Calamise, again, is outside the top 10. He needs to improve as well. We've got Jim Paresis and Martin Gosby up there in 3rd and 4th at the moment, but the Precision boys have only got one car inside the top 10 at the moment out of their 4, so including the GT Omega racing cars. Let's see where this lap time. I think this is going to put Bono easily into the top 10. It's not going to be that fast, though. 1:17.089. Oh, it is quite fast. It's 3rd. So forget what I said there. Bono Huis goes up into 3rd place. But can Calamise improve? Can Van Starkenburg or Keithley improve? Calamise is just coming down the back straight. He's coming down the casino straight. He's got the DRS open. Gets as far over to the right-hand side as he can as he approaches this final chicane, a crucial chicane here. Just have to wait and see. You don't want to go into the wall of champions on the exit. He doesn't. A little bit of a wiggle as he goes towards the line. He's a 1:17.367. That's by no means safe. He's only up into 9th. Peter Berliak has now been pushed outside the top 10. Jack Keithley's back in the pit, so he's out of it. He won't be making the top 10. Well, he's going back out again, but it's going to be tight because he's only got 1 minute and 20 to go. You need 1 minute and 16 to get around the lap. And it'll be very difficult, I think, to find clean air. Calamise is going out again as well, but I think that, of course, it is a shorter pit lane, so they have got a little bit of spare time. But I think it's unlikely that they will make it back round and get some clean air as well. That's the problem. It's not just getting round, but finding yourself some space to get the lap in. As Berliak now goes back up into the top 10, and he knocks Antonio Kolarec out, but only improved by a few hundredths of a second, Berliak. So that puts Calamise in a fairly comfortable position. He's even on the outlap. Ivar Calamise making sure that he uses all the curb at the Concord corner. It's been an interesting session so far. Got some surprises. Kostadinov down in 13th. Normally expect him to be high. Remember, he was very fast at Imola 2 weeks ago. Very competitive this year in FSR's. Morgan Moran now goes fastest on a 1:16.676. Ville Lepela has popped himself up into the top 3 and the third man into the 1:16s with a 16.996. That puts us down to 4th. Just trying to see who might improve here at the moment. Kolarec, Keithley, Kostadinov and Van Starkenburg all on laps. Whether they can improve, we don't know. It's going to be close for them. Kolarec is at the start of his lap and he's run wide already at the exit of turn 2, so I think he's not going to improve. Jack Keithley is actually on a lap, so our timing screens are obviously a little bit mucked up. He's done a 21.8 through the first sector. Problem is that it's very close here. I mean, Bono Huis has only got a 3/10 gap back to 10th position, so it was hardly comfortable for anyone really from 3rd or 4th downwards. And Jack Keighley, oh, just nearly hit the wall there. I think he got away with it, but it was very close. And it's not a particularly fantastic second sector from Keighley. His car getting totally out of shape through the pit's hairpin and down the Casino Straight. And I don't think this is going to be a particularly outstanding lap for Keighley. I don't think it's going to be enough to get him into the top 10. See how it goes as he comes towards the final chicane. Got to try and hook this up. It's such an important corner. Don't want to go over the curbs too much, but then again, you want to take enough out of them that you are gaining the time you can. But this is not going to be enough, I don't think, for Keighley. No, it isn't. 1:17.626, actually slower than his previous best lap. So we now know our top 10 pretty much. As Calamy's the line, the last one to do so, but it doesn't matter. He's in the top 10. So here is the top 10 then. Morgan Moran in first. Atse Kirchhoff, Ville Leppeler, Bono Huis, Jim Parisis, Osby, David Greco, Johnny Simon, Var Calamys, and Petr Berliak will all go to the top 10 shootout. And Berliak will be the first to go Q2. So then, it's been an interesting session that. The Precision Motorsports guys, well, they both got in the top 10 in the end, but it wouldn't be as comfortable as they would have liked. And they'll be hoping that they can improve on that drastically in Q2. Of course, Q2 will have a big difference here. Not expecting to see 16s at all. They're having to run very large this weekend. Canada really is a killer on brakes. So they will be running brake docks probably 3 times the size of what they've been running at other tracks. So there is plenty to be got there from that. And so we should see some slower lap times. Probably going to be looking around the mid-17s, I think, for pole position here. But we will see how that goes. Berliak is the first out on track. Because it's an interesting one. Here, you can't go too early. It's going to be interesting for the outlaps as well, because drivers are going to have to wait a little bit before leaving the pit lane. Normally speaking, they'd leave the pit lane as the other guy crosses the start-finish line, but if they do that here, they may even catch them because, of course, of this very short pit lane. So they've got to be a little bit careful of that, make sure that they're not in next to the driver in turn 1, ruining their lap. Petr Berliak then, interestingly, not taking a particularly slow outlaps, decided that he's going to go for it on the outlap, get the tyres as warmed up as possible, using the super soft and the soft tyres here this weekend, as we were last time out in Imola, so the red and yellow sidewall tyres, the super soft and the soft respectively, as Petr Berliak does some rather frantic tyre warming on the Casino Straight, heads now through the final chicane and onto his lap. Let's see what he can achieve. Remember that the best Sector 1 that we saw in Q1 was a 21.7, so what will we see from Berliak here? I expect it probably will be slower. Cuts over the inside of turn 1 nicely, and now through turn 2. Nice exit there, sometimes shifting up to third gear a little bit early just so you can get the traction away. Goes through turns 3 and 4. And all looking pretty comfortable for him so far. It's a 21.777. That's an excellent first sector considering he's on the race setup now. Of course, they are allowed to use low fuel, but they will have to carry the brake ducts and radiators that they will be using for the race. Whereas in qualifying 1, they can run them as low as they like. A little bit shaky there, Berliak, through that chicane. Just lost a little bit of traction, might have lost a little bit of time. It's not a bad Sector 2. 24.924. Down the Casino Straight now. It was a good exit from the hairpin for Berliak. And he's away using the DRS. This is the one of 2 DRS zones. Only the 1 detection zone, though, for the DRS this weekend. That's on the entry to the hairpin. And, oh, and he's out of shape. And he's hit the wall of champions. The first man this weekend to do that. Berliak, for the 2nd time this season, has spun on a lap and will not complete his qualifying lap. And that's a disappointment for the Twister Racing driver. Well, Ivar Calamys comes out of the final corner, so he will now start his lap. It looked like a pretty decent Q2 lap for Berliak as well, so I'm sure Twister Racing will be devastated about that because it looked like a pretty decent lap. Such a shame, but Calamys as well on the super soft tyre then, so we know what he's going to be starting the race on. of course, have to start the race with the tyres that they used here in Q2. Not allowed to change compounds through the first sector. 21.9. Not as fast as Berliak was in that first sector. A tenth and a half slower. Doesn't look to be anything particularly wrong with the precision car. It seems to be getting off the corners pretty well. There's not really a huge amount of movement. It's just not very fast. Maybe they're just not able to get the most in the corners. Maybe it's just a slight amount of understeer. It's not particularly noticeable, but second sector again, slightly slower than what Berliak was doing. Of course, it doesn't matter because Berliak didn't set a time, so Calamise knows that providing he finishes the lap, he will be in front of Peter Berliak. And Calamise, interestingly, Johnny Simon has gone out on track very early because he's actually already out. Oh no, he's supposed to be out on circuit, that's right. So get that. And Calamise comes through the final corner. What's this lap time going to be? I expect it's somewhere in the 118s this. And oh, it's a 117.6. So he had a good last sector. That's a pretty decent lap actually in Q2 from Calamise. And Johnny Simon of Positive Sim Racing will be the next to come across the line to start a lap. And Johnny Simon spun out in turn 1. So for the second driver that has not managed to complete a lap. Now, will he fire it back up and complete the lap? He's still, no, he's not. He's come back in. Well, I tell you what, we've got a few drivers making mistakes here. Did see that throughout the Ace and Pro races as well. It's a difficult track to drive, and it's so easy to lose traction. And Johnny Simon, the second driver not to finish his lap. We'll have to wait a little bit now for Greco to come round, the Italian, to start his lap for Twister Racing. We know what he's aiming at. He's aiming at Calamise. So that last sector from Calamise, that will be an interesting one. Be interested to see what Greco's reaching in terms of top speed here. He's on his out lap. We'll have a look on the back straight to see what sort of top speed we're looking at for Greco. Here we go then, down the back straight, down the casino straight. Let's see what he gets. We've seen some very fast top speeds, up to 322 yesterday in Pro, and that's going to be even higher. 326 as he hits the brakes, Greco. 326 kilometers an hour. He comes now to start the lap. So he's aiming at a 21.9 for the first sector. Keep your eyes on that clock as he goes through turn 1. Nicely cut, and didn't cut it as much as Calamise, I noticed, but nevertheless it was very clean and tidy through there. Sometimes if you cut it too much, you can lose grip, and it's actually not of any benefit, so it may well be that Greco's taken the right line there. Oh, really, really to the wall. I think he did brush it actually on exit, but nevertheless, he's 100th faster through the first sector to Ivar Calamise, nearly 200. So, and again, he's very close to the walls. Not afraid to push the limits on this circuit, David Greco. Through this chicane, looking good on the super soft tyre as well, so that's really starting to touch the wall again. It's only been slight brushes, he's got away with it rather, and he's slower than Calamise through the second sector. There's only about 200ths in it on the overall lap so far, but David Greco at the moment needs to find some time in this final sector, but we know that he has a humongous straight line speed, so let's see how he goes here. See the 326 again as he goes into the final chicane. Oh, wasn't particularly good through that final chicane, so this is not going to be the fastest time. And it's not, it's a 1:17.772. Interestingly, only lost a tenth of a second with a very clumsy final chicane, so not too bad actually for Greco considering. And now then, Martin Gosby, who has run a little bit wide in turn 1, it has to be said. Looks pretty okay so far. We know he's fast. One last time out, 21.900, so he's about 300ths up on Calamise, and that was excellent through the Concord corner. Really got the curve nicely there, and also on the exit. So this has been a good lap so far from Martin Gosby. Every single driver we've seen so far starting on the super soft tyre certainly seems to have a good pace advantage over the soft tyre this weekend, and Gosby looks very, very neat and tidy so far through this lap. It's a 24.993 through the second sector, again just 6 thousandths faster than Calamise through that second sector, but it's just increasing as the lap goes on. He's got it up to about 3.5 hundredths of a second now, about 35 thousandths as we go now down the Casino Straight towards the final corner. Martin Gosby, here he goes through the final chicane and away towards the line. Let's see what the lap time is. 1:17.548, so there we go, the new fastest time for Martin Gosby. The Twister Racing black car goes into provisional pole position, but there are still 5 drivers to come. The first of which is Jim Paresis, his teammate. The other Twister Racing black car, been very evenly matched this weekend so far. Paresis not been so strong at the last couple of races, and a pretty wild turn 1 there from him. He's had a couple of more average races recently, but we know he's fast. He did very well in the Winter Series, won that I believe. So Jim Paresis, we know he's fast, but he's lost a 10th in the first sector. I think that might be a result of that turn 1 that we saw. So lost a 10th to his teammate. And very neatly there we can see Jim and on the rear wing and Paresis on the other side. Just if you're in any doubt, helps you viewers and helps us as commentators to know who they are. It's very nicely done that. 24.822 through the second sector. So he's actually now up on Gosby. He's gained the time back and more. So Jim Paresis here with a superb second sector. And that might give him a chance of putting this into the fastest lap so far. The DRS Open then, as he goes down the Casino Straight towards the final chicane. Very important corner this. Already seen a couple of drivers a bit clumsy through there, but Paresis is fine. He goes towards the line. It's a 1:17.397, the new fastest lap. And another good sector in the final sector as well. Gained a few more hundredths on Gosby. And that puts him now into provisional pole position. But now Bono Huis running a little bit earlier than he would hope. Nice turn 1 though. We know that he would normally expect to be running a little bit later in Q2. There is a little bit of an advantage from running later in Q2 in that the track's a little bit more rubbered in. I don't think it's a huge advantage though. As Bono goes through the first sector, it's a 21.762. That's a good first sector from Bono. Nearly 3/10ths faster than what Paresis did, a quarter of a second roundabout actually, 2.5 tenths. And I have to say, on the heavier ducts and radiators, Huis's car looks a lot better balanced. It's slower than Paresis through sector 2 though. He's about a 10th and a bit slower than Paresis through sector 2, so he's lost some of that time. He's still got some in hand though. So if he can get a good last sector, it should still be the fastest time we've seen so far. Interesting how close they are getting to their Q1 times. You just wonder if maybe some of them weren't quite pushing the boat out in Q1 and just making sure they got through. Bono Huis then exits the final corner and runs for the line. 1:17.378. He only just beat Paresis, so he lost a lot of time in sectors 2 and 3. And Bono, well, has not been fastest really at any stage this season so far. He's always been behind someone. It's usually only Morgan, but this weekend it could be more. Lepela is the next to run, and Eventa SimRacing having a great drive here. A team that's really emerged in the last couple of races. Kostadinov had that very strong qualifying session. You remember in Imola, was second fastest in Q1 and then unfortunately span during Q2. 21.783 for Lepela. So it's a good first sector, almost matching Huis. As he goes through the chicane, really looks a little bit out of shape under braking. Oh, and he's hit the wall. And I have to say, he didn't hit the wall that hard. That looked a bit like a track bug to me. And watching the replay, it was, so that's very unfortunate for Lepela. Very strange as well, because we saw another driver get away with that. I think it was Greco, wasn't it, who was bounding off the walls quite a lot, and he seemed to get away with it in the same place, so very odd. I'd say Kirchhoff then. Start lap. Turn 1. Oh, that's nice. He was a little bit out of shape there, but he got it back under control so quickly. Don't be confused by the fact that Lepela's written on the side of the car. Just having a paint it go speed. He's at, say, Kirk. As he goes through turn 1, he's looking so good so far. This is an excellent first sector, 21.818. It's actually slower than Huis. That's a surprise, because it looked very good. As Kirchhoff goes on the exit, kicks up the grass a little bit there. A little bit of lawn mowing. Now into the chicane. This chicane been catching quite a few people out, but Kirchhoff, no such worries. As he comes now through sector 2 to the end of sector 2. What's the time like? It's not fantastic. 25.030. And this, at the moment, for Kirchhoff, well, it's not even going to be on the front row, the way things are going, which is a surprise. Which means that Bono Huis, despite a very average Q1, has got half a chance of getting pole position here. There might only be Morgan Moran standing between him and pole position. As Kirchhoff clumsy through the final chicane. It's not been a particularly clean lap, but has it been fast? No, it hasn't. 1:17.595 for Kirchhoff. That is not particularly good. He's 4th. And you would probably imagine 5th by the end of Moran's lap. So then, Morgan Moran. Here we go. Can he make it 5 out of 5? Great turn 1. It's looking good so far. And Morgan Moran has really got it all to do here. Everybody has gone for the Super Sub tyre. Just wait to see what Moran did in the first sector. I didn't actually get it on my timing screen because there was a little bit of lag there. It was a 21.593. I can confirm from the server's sector times. That is amazing. Outstanding first sector. That's nearly 2/10 up on Bono Huis. This is magical so far for Moran. Poetry in motion. It's even better in sector 2. No, it isn't actually. It's a 25.2 through sector 2, sorry. So that was actually quite slow from Moran. I apologise for that. Initially I was getting 24s up on my screen. It's got a few problems here, but nevertheless, being told it's a 25.2, in which case this is maybe not going to be pole position. I haven't got a lap time readout from Moran on my screen, so we'll have to see what it is when it comes across the line. It is pole though. He gained it back in the final sector, 1:17.213. And to be honest, the first sector probably did much of the work for him because it was such a lightning first sector. So Morgan Moran then makes it 5 out of 5 with a 1:17.213. Second sector wasn't fantastic, but nevertheless, it was enough for pole position with his first and third sectors. So then, a run down the order then for the race. Morgan Moran starts first, Bono Huis in second. Jim Parisis and Martin Gosby have a Twister Racing Black lockout in third and fourth. Kirchhoff is 5th for Ghost Speed Racing, a little bit disappointing for him. Ivar Calamis starts 6th of Precision Motorsports, who had a decent qualifying in the end, despite looking a little bit on the ropes in Q1. David Greco is 7th, and then Lepela 8th, Simon 9th, and Berliak 10th. None of them set lap times in Q2. They all had spins or crashes in Q2. Kolarec is 11th, Keithley 12th, Kostadinov 13th, and Starkenberg 14th, Disley 15th, John Oak Saxon 16th, Paolini 17th, Eros Mashuli in 18th, Adrian Rodriguez 19th, Centel 20th, Alberts 21st, Peter Helmbro 22nd, and Fabrizio Gobbi 23rd. So in the meantime, we'll take a 5-minute break because I need to go get a glass of water because you probably can hear my voice is going a little bit. So I'll try and get it back for you before the start of the race. We've got 10 minutes here for warm-up anyway. We'll keep an eye on you on the race times, and keep your questions coming in as well with the Ask Commentator hashtag on the YouTube chat. I'll try and answer some of those in a short while. But be back in just a second. Sorry about that. I'm back now. Just getting into some soothing the old larynx. And interesting to see actually what we've seen in qualifying so far. Really has been quite close. Morgan Moran and Bono Huis were maybe a little bit out in front of the rest, but we know from the times that we saw in practice that might not necessarily be the case in the race. So interesting to keep an eye on this one. Interesting as well in that final chicane, you notice there's a wall there on the runoff area. It's not as easy to just cut across the runoff here, because there is a wall there, so you're going to have to be a little bit careful. You have to really slow down if you do cut across that chicane. It prevents drivers from doing what they did in past years, which is just bailing out of it if they don't have a particularly good entry and outbrake themselves going into that corner. Makes you keep you a little bit more focused. With regard to Ville Lepela on his flying lap, we did see that unfortunately the track seemed to have a bug. I think it was that. I don't think he hit the wall particularly hard, not hard enough to tear the wheels off as it did. So I suspect that that's what happened. Lepela, unfortunately, victim of a track bug this weekend. Can happen occasionally, unfortunately, but it's just one of those things. I'm sure that it won't happen during the race to him. He did run very wide out of that corner. The chances are, to be honest, the way that he ran out wide, it might possibly not have been a particularly, I don't know, but his sector one wasn't bad, so maybe, but we'll never know now. Unfortunate for Lepper. Christy Jong will be joining me shortly. Morgan Moran as well. Just somebody pointing out on the that it really is surprising that he was still able to take that pole position despite doing a mistake in turn 5, and it didn't look particularly clean. The sector 2 wasn't good. We spoke about that, but nevertheless, he still managed to get a good lap out of it, and that was impressive. And hopefully. He'll be able to really show us what he's made of again in the race. But of course we do like to see variety. We got that last time out with Martin Gosby winning. Moran only finished 3rd there, of course, which was atrocious for him, but that's the way it was last time out. And Bono Huis, well, we know he's a great driver as well. I expect to see him win a race at some point this year. Never really in FSR do we have less than 3 winners in a season. It doesn't really happen very often. There's always at least someone who wins a race, when perhaps the lead driver Moran this year would have got the pole position, but there's always something that can happen, and then you just, it can be anything really. You misjudge how much fuel you need. Maybe you have a pit lane speeding penalty. We've seen that sometimes. Just the slightest lapse of concentration, you can end up in a wall and damage your suspension, and then you're going slower. Any number of things that can happen during a race, and that's what motorsport is like. So as we saw for the Mercedes team in Canada in Formula 1, that's what can happen. You know, sometimes things don't go according to plan, and then other drivers can capitalise. With regard to Moran's time in sector, what would it have been if he hadn't had a bad sector 2? Well, we can only speculate, but really. But we saw other drivers doing 24.9s in the second sector, and I think Moran did a 25.2. So based on that, could have been in the 16s. But I think that would have been very good on surprising on a Q2 setup. Bearing in mind, of course, that Moran has a low downforce setting this week, and lower downforce than some of the other drivers, then I probably think it would probably been a 17.0 or a 17.1 rather than the 17.2 he actually did. Don't think it would have been into the 16s, purely because, as I say, you wouldn't expect him to be quite as fast in Sector 2 because of that low downforce setting. Sector 2 really is a part of the track where you do need a little bit more grip. So I think perhaps it would have been a slightly lower 17. Maybe it would have been a 16, but I think it would probably more likely have been a 17.0 or a 17.1. That's my personal opinion on it. Interestingly, so far, I'm seeing that in the practice session, the warm-up, seeing a few drivers getting into the rhythm. And Morgan Moran's a long way clear in terms of pace at the moment, but some of these drivers will be trying out different sorts of stints. Some might be trying out the second stint, some might be trying out the first stint. Really depends on what they've been struggling with in practice, really. Some cars just feel more balanced, and you'd think having the same car that it would be the same problem for everybody, but it's not. Depending on your setup, you struggle at different points in the race, and sometimes your car setup suits more earlier on, sometimes it suits more later on. It's just one of those things, really. We'll see who can make a move. Patrick de Witt, by the way, will be starting this race. He'll be starting the race from the back of the grid, though. That's why he didn't take part in qualifying, so he is taking part today. We've got about 2 minutes and 45 seconds before the start of the race. A few drivers doing some extra laps, a few drivers taking a comfort break, and we're just preparing themselves for this 70-lap race. 70 laps is a long time, and particularly around this track when you've got these walls so close together. Think about this pit hairpin we saw in Formula 1 a few years ago. Robert Kubica having that massive accident there. I'm sure most of us remember that. There's so many places here where you can just make a mistake. Plus the track's quite narrow in actual fact. It's not as wide as some circuits. There are parts of it that are wider, but when you're running next to cars, there really isn't room to go, well, there's certainly not room to go 3 wide in most places. And even 2 wide can be a bit narrow in certain areas of the track. So we'll see if that becomes a problem for drivers during the race. May well see a lot of retirements due to brake failure as well. We talked about that earlier on. People are going to want to be pushing the boundaries because you don't want to be carrying unnecessary weight, but the problem with that is that sometimes you might push a little bit too hard, and then you're going to end up with a brake failure towards the end of the race, and you end up with no points. And at the end of the day, you've got to finish to get points. And of course, there are exceptions to that rule. If there's less than 10 finishes and you were the 10th car classified and you did more than 90% of the race, you can be classified, but I don't think that's going to come into it, so we'll talk about that complication when it comes to it. Other thing to remember this weekend as well, of course, very short run down to turn 1, so overtaking won't be as prevalent, I don't think, at the start of the race. Due to that, we will be expecting a few moves and shakers, but it's probably not going to be drastic because you haven't got much time. Having said that, we saw some lightning starts in the Ace race yesterday, so if you really hook it up, maybe you can. It was also a very clean start in Ace yesterday, in race 1 anyway. So let's hope we get the same in World Championship. These drivers, of course, are the best of the best, so you would hope so. But it is always difficult on lap 1 while everybody's very close together, of course. So let's see. Let's see if it gets that way. We've got about a few seconds then before the drivers set off on their formation lap. So just about to progress to the race. And unfortunately, it looks like Jong was held up with an important phone call, and it seems that he has been held up by that continuously because he's not here. So I'm going to have to try and battle through this on my own. So wish me luck. And there we go then for round 5 of the season. Now, I've got nobody to banter with now, but never mind. It's going to be an interesting race. I think we should see plenty of action, so there should be plenty to keep us to concern this afternoon. Canada always produces a good race in my experience, and doesn't matter what series goes there, it's always an interesting race. So it's 70 laps then, and they have just got 35 seconds to get themselves onto the grid so that they can be ready to start the formation lap. So then, off on their formation lap, let's give you another run down the grid order. Morgan Moran starts in first place, as usual. He's really very much making that his own. They might as well put a reserve sign on it, to be honest, the way things have gone so far. Bono Hui starts second, Jim Parisis is third, Martin Gosby in fourth, Ase Kirchhoff fifth, Ivar Calamay starts sixth, David Greco seventh, Ville Lepler eighth, Johnny Simon 9th, Peter Berliak starts 10th, Antonio Kolarec in 11th, Jack Keighley 12th, Dejan Kostadinov 13th, Rob van Starkenberg in 14th, Blair Disley starts 15th, John Eric Saxon 16th, Dino Paolini 17th, Eros Mashuli 18th, Adrian Rodriguez in 19th, Matt Sentel in 20th, Mark Alberts 21st, Carlos Martin in 22nd, Patrick de Witt 23rd, Marcel van der Linden 24th, Peter Helmbro 25th, and Fabrizio Gobbi 26th. We've got 4 drivers then starting from the back of the pack, and Carlos Martin as well, I think, starting from the back of the pack. So 5 drivers, in fact, starting from the back of the grid, and they will have to make their way through. You'd imagine Carlos Martin and Patrick de Witt, and even Marcel van der Linden as well, who's been fast at times this year particularly, they will really be hoping to move through the order as the race goes on, so they'll have a few slower drivers to pass. It's Morgan Moran leading them very slowly down the back straight, so that's interesting. They're all getting very bunched up. Doesn't want to be sat too long on the grid, obviously. His tyres will just cool as he goes through that, so not really surprising that that's what he's decided to do. Back them up a little bit, make sure that he doesn't ruin the tyres and cool them down too much. Although in the case of these super soft tyres, they do come alive pretty quickly. They are the softest of the compounds that we do have here in FSR. So we'll see then as they come to the start-finish line, see if we can have a nice, clean start to the race. A few drivers coming out of the back. We're watching the final few on the grid, putting themselves in positions. Gobby has just come through the final corner, so he will get lined up at the back with Helmbro, and then once they have done that, the lights will come on and we'll be preparing for a start. So here we go then. The revs are up, they're ready. Release the clutch and go, and Morgan Moran gets a great start. Bono Huis not so much so, but he's still okay. He's going to be attacking Moran on the exit. They've collided already, and Bono Huis has already collected Morgan Moran. They'll both get some contact there down in turn 1. There's a few drivers going backwards. I think Johnny Simon has dropped down to 9th. Just trying to see further back what's going on. But it really is, well, I'll tell you what, it's been interesting so far. Morgan Moran, though, is already starting to extend that gap. Paresis and Gosby have got away where they were. Calamise has got in front of Kirchhoff for 5th position. And really interesting first lap so far. Morgan Moran trying to stretch that lead as soon as he can. Wants to get out of the DRS zone. Van Starkenburg's going backwards. I think he might have had a spin. And already Morgan Moran over a second clear of Huis. And coming towards the end of the first lap, Chris de Jong does now join us. So welcome to you, Chris, this evening. You're a little bit late, but better late than never.
Yeah, cheers. I didn't knew I could do the commentating except for 30 minutes to spare. That's not the point right now. What is the point is that Moran is leading after the first lap, but thanks for the welcome. So what a brilliant start it was, and indeed some contact between Morgan and Bono. Bono just maybe knowing this is the only chance I'm going to get, I have to do it now. But fortunately it didn't happen, or it didn't end into tears for both of them, and still driving on.
Yeah, and Patrick de Witt already out of the race, so that's not gone well for him again. And, well, I don't know really what we can say about that. It's really not been a good season for de Witt, it has to be said. Helmbro's in the pits as well. I wonder if maybe there might have been some contact between the two of them, because Helmbro was fairly close to de Witt on the start. They both started from the back of the grid, so maybe possibly some contact there, Chris.
Yeah, I'm watching the replay now, and Patrick just goes on the grass trying to overtake and collects him on the way back. So really unfortunate, really unfortunate. Can be a racing incident, but I don't know, it's not my job, fortunately.
No, luckily we don't have to do that paperwork. Anyway, Morgan Moran, well, look at the lead he has. I mean, this is remarkable. This is quite a short lap round here. He's in nearly seconds after 2 laps. It's a second a lap fast. And just going to look on here, and yes, it is indeed a second a lap. It's 2 seconds already, Chris, after 2 laps.
Yeah, that's insane through here. I mean, like you said, the circuit isn't that long as you have been in other circuits, and still he's pulling out 6/10 each sector. I mean, it's unbelievable. But we have to keep in mind, 2 weeks ago we saw the same thing, and Bono fought back in the end where it mattered. And maybe this is just a small quick start for Morgan. Or maybe it's just Morgan that says, okay, 2 weeks ago I spoiled it for myself the last laps, it's not going to happen now. I practiced harder, I trained harder, and this time I'm going to show you my world-class skill.
Yeah, it might possibly be so. Zinase Kirchhoff, of course, is driving for Ghost Speed this weekend, Chris, and he's not doing as well as maybe we'd expect Kirchhoff to do so far. Down there in 6th, lost a position off the start to Calamise.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see him. I mean, he promised me that it was only it would only remain with 1 appearance this year. But I'm happy to see him again. So hello, Etsy. But yeah, 6th position is not the kind of placement he would expect from himself. I'm sure. But nevertheless, the race is long, and there will be some action ahead of us. But fortunate to say that in the starting lap we didn't see any major chaos and stuff, so everyone got a great start.
Yeah, only Patrick de Witt had any incident at all on the first lap, which was fairly nice. We've had some pretty clean starts this weekend, actually. It looks like the nail has finally been hit on the head by the race directors in the main. because we've had some pretty clean starts. I know we did have one yesterday in the Pro Series, which was a bit of a nightmare. Carlos Martin, the race director, had to throw a red flag. He counted the cars, but apparently there were 17 involved. I'm not sure we've ever had that in FSR, but that was quite. It was almost a Spa 98 moment, but nothing like that today.
Oh, that's good. It was the right decision to take a red flag, and after that, people were able to race again. Nothing like that is going on here. We have everyone in a clear position of each other. Great first lap of everyone, and already people are trying to find their own slot into the pack, and that's easily translated in the gaps between them. I mean, Peter Briljak's already after 3 laps like 10 seconds behind, so he's losing 3 seconds a lap. But excellent pace from Moran, 3 seconds into the lead.
Yeah, it's interesting though, Briljak is the first of the cars on the soft tyre in terms of where they are in track position at the moment, so that will be interesting to see. It's a shame he didn't manage to get a Q2 time in. I actually saw 3 cars spinning out in Q2 today, Chris. I don't know whether you think that this track has been particularly difficult for grip, but we saw 3 cars not managing to complete their laps.
I'm happy because I just but no. That's true.
Yeah, Jim Paresis has got Martin Gosby very close behind him at the moment, the 2 teammates, so we'll see if they are going to have a battle this time round. But the thing is, Paresis is vulnerable because unlike most of the cars behind him, we haven't seen a lot of overtaking purely because they're all in the DRS zones of each other, which means that it sort of negates the effect of the DRS. But of course that's not the case for Paresis, who's got Gosby behind him, and Gosby will have DRS, but he won't. So let's see if Gosby can get past now as they go down into the final chicane. Gosby's certainly going to have a run. Interestingly, not getting that close though, and no, nothing doing this time. But he does get another burst of DRS.
Bono is gone. Bono is gone out of this race. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe it might just be a disconnect. I'm gonna look into it instantly. But what unfortunate, Bono. What happened, mate?
I think it is a DNF disconnect because he just disappeared. So yeah, unfortunate for Bono.
Wow, this is certainly not something Precision could use, and after his strong performance 2 weeks ago, I just think this is really, sorry for my language, but shit for him. I mean, just not something he deserves.
Well, we've had a few issues this weekend, it has to be said, and that is very disappointing because, of course, it has a massive effect on the championship. Yes, okay, Morgan Moran was in front already, but remember that gap was only 18 points, so it's now going to go up. If Morgan Moran wins this race, it's going to be 43, Chris.
Yeah, there's one thing, I mean, it will certainly not be decreased. The gap in between them.
No, that's for definite. I think there's a fair bet on that one, Chris, yeah. Atze Kirchhoff then in the slipstream of Calames. But again, this is the problem. Calames has got the DRS on Gosby as well, so it just means that it's very difficult for Kirchhoff to get past at the moment. However, of course, this is now a battle for second position here. There's a very long train of cars, and there's about 7 or 8 of them involved.
Yeah, if I would give my favor to one person, it would definitely be Atze Kirchhoff, purely because oversteer or understeer just isn't present in the vocabulary of Atze. He's such a stable driver, and you will never see him make a mistake. Nevertheless, you have to do it first, and well, he manages a good pace right here to maybe clinch a podium. I think he can be happy that he's up there, you know, and he isn't struggling for a P10 or something like that. He's up the pack. He's in range for the guys in front of him, and now that Bono disconnected, it's sad for him, but it leaves a lot of opportunities for the others.
Yeah, there's a bit of a collision with Marcel van der Linden and Eros Mashuli a little bit further back down the order, and it all started because I think Marcel van der Linden was trying to get a run on John-Eric Saxon through the exit turn. No, he didn't actually. He ran wide onto the grass coming out of the coming in towards the Concord corner. and that unfortunately then pushed him wide at the end of Sector 1 and meant that Masciuli had a run on him and got through. So, and Masciuli has now been off the track, I think.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I'd like to point out that...
he's out. I'm sorry, Chris. Crociaris Masciuli has really hit the wall hard. He's hit the wall, interesting way. I think he's hit the wall coming out of the previous chicane and lost the rear wing. And he's damaged the suspension significantly well. So I think that's the end of the road.
Yeah, he's just cruising down the back straight, and I would not be surprised if he would park his car into the pit straight. What I would love to say is that Johnny Simon on his WCD, obviously the ace comment, aced the podium yesterday with a second place in ace, now finds himself into 8th spot into the WC. So remarkable, let's keep an eye on him.
Yeah, certainly so, and he's up behind Ville Lepela, who's in 7th at the moment. Lepela, of course, had a very unfortunate Q2 where he hit an invisible wall. That unfortunately is why where he...
Invisible walls, right?
Yes.
That's really unfortunate.
We'll update you on that later, Chris.
It's okay, but yeah, that's not nice for Johnny Simon, because Lepela isn't the most inexperienced driver. He's very experienced here, and he does know how to keep the car behind.
Yeah, he certainly does. Peter Berjak has just got past Antonio Kolarec with a lovely DRS move down the back straight, down the casino straight, the 9th position, but Kolarec, just surprisingly without DRS, had a pretty good run on Berjak down into turn 1, because there's only one detection zone here, Chris, and that's before the hairpin, and you then get DRS down the 2 straight.
Indeed, and that's nice. The way it is, but Kolarec finds himself into 10th place. Maybe he can get a run onto Berjak next way around.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob van Stockenberg is now out of the race as well, so we've already lost 3. They're dropping like flies, and that's 2 of the Precision stable out of the race already. They were having a pretty... you didn't see this yourself, Chris, but in Q1 they were really struggling to get through to the top 10. Neither of the GT Omega boys did, and both Precision Motorsports cars, with about 2 minutes to go, were 9th and 10th in Q1, and it doesn't seem to be a very good weekend for them so far.
No, Rob has to retire because of the suspension damage, and well, it's really unfortunate for him.
Not been a good weekend for them. Alamaze is up in 4th though, so that's not too bad. Down in 11th, and the G particularly not looking fast this weekend for whatever reason. Just shows you that from track to track sometimes things can change. Morgan Morando, 9 laps in, 6th lead, and he is marching clear at the moment.
Yeah, awesome stuff we're seeing from him, and I'm afraid for him that he's gonna face himself a lonely race. Although he has to still remain focused. I mean, focused. It's really a pace setter at this moment. Although the gap is not increasing anymore, maybe he's just thinking, okay, I like the gap I have, 8 seconds, it's very comfortable, and I'll just save my tires from here. Let's see what he does.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. We're talking about Eros Masciuli, who is trying to fix the damage in the pit lane. Normally we'd say don't bother, but the thing is, Chris, with the amount of retirements we've already seen, if he comes out 3-4 laps down, as long as the car's drivable and he's not going to be endangering other drivers, maybe it is worth staying out there today. We've already seen 3 retirements. I don't know where you might end up.
At this rate, we won't keep any driver if they keep DNFing. It may be a tactical decision. I mean, he has all the right to do so if the car can get fixed, and if he doesn't form a danger to others, why not? At this moment, I just saw Atse Kerkhoff just sliding around a bit, not something you would expect from him. And instead of threatening Ivar Calames for 4th position, he's getting under pressure by David Greco, who wants to take 5th spot away from Atse. So Greco joining the pack there. And this is our main battle that we can see now. I mean, Morant is 8 seconds clear of Jim Parisis, but Jim, Martin, Ivar, Atse, Greco, and well, also Lepala and Johnny are now all in a train behind them. I mean, this is just great.
Yeah, we have had some people on the YouTube chat celebrating at Bono Huis going out of the race, which I don't think is entirely right. So please do remember these guys have all put in a huge amount of effort to practice for this race. So it's never nice to celebrate when someone else goes out of a race. I'm not normally trying to take a moral high ground here, but that's not really acceptable. And I'm sure Bono will be devastated about that, particularly because, as I say, these guys do practice hours and hours to get themselves prepared for these races, which is why we see the quality and the speed that we do. So Bono, really unfortunate for him.
Especially Bono tested a lot, if we can take the words from Johannes Kunkel serious in the interview. But no, it's certainly not fair for him to disconnect, but sometimes life isn't fair. Nevertheless, it gives opportunity to other guys, and this finds already first maiden victory in Imola last weekend, and well, I think we will have a nice battle for the other podium spots. Although it is early to say that Morand will win this, but I mean he's just in a league of his own, and I think the only person on this track who could have made life possible has had a DC.
Yes, and we've already got the first pit stops of the race. Aros Mashuli, by the way, is still in the pit lane. Yeah, I think he's come back in again, actually, so it's not going well for him. Jack Keithley and Antonio Kolarich and Peter Berliak also in the pit lane. I think there may have been some contact there, actually, because and Mashuli has now retired from the race, but Peter Berliak is having a long pit stop.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can we go on board with Atsi Kerkhoff? I'm pretty sure we're going to see an overtaking maneuver, or an attempt, certainly. Atsi is getting really close, but the top speed of the precision is just too high for him to get any close. It was right off his gearbox at the hairpin. But yeah, Ivar showing a great pace here. And it's nice for him that he's already in the top 4. Of course, he had minor issues the last races, bad qualifies, but he seems to be stepping up a bit to the expectations of others, but I also think from himself. And it's nice for him that he finds himself in a competitive position at the moment.
Yeah, certainly is. Marcel van der Linden is up to 12th from the back as well, so that's a pretty good come through the grid. I think he started about 24th, so that's very impressive from Marcel. We've seen, we might remember in Bahrain, he had an excellent race. I think he finished 7th there, so van der Linden showing some real pace again. He's up to 12th. He's about, his next target is Carlos Martin, who also started from the back edge, killing a couple of places in front of him, so both of them coming through. Blair Disley, interestingly, is in at the moment, so a good race from Blair so far. We haven't seen one of those so far from him this season. Chris, nice to see Blair back in the points again.
Yeah, definitely a guy that has my respect. I mean, he's been here since, I believe, 1844. So it's really nice to see him get some position.
Blair Disley has been around longer than the time of the Victorians, according to Chris de Jong. That's where that's what we like to hear. Ville Leffler in the pits.
Yeah, oh, he's in the pit. That's an early stop, although lap 13. I think he will go back onto the super soft. But that's only a thought. Let's see what he does. Indeed, he will go back to the super soft.
And the thing is here, Chris, we mentioned this earlier on, if you look at where he's going to come out here, he's going to be very close to Blair and Carlos, actually, so this is going to be an interesting exit.
He will jump him.
Oh, yes, he will indeed. And only 9th. And this is what we were talking about, because you only lose 12 or 13 seconds here in the pit stops. So they don't run these tyres down to their full wear, Chris. They are actually pitting a little bit earlier. That's something we're seeing this weekend. Yeah,
the pit lane is really interesting because you have the first run up to turn 1, and you can well, not take the apex because you have to take mention of the white line there. But the others still have the first and second corner to go through. So having said that, you might only lose like 18 or 20 seconds in the entire pit stop. So it's very attractive to do 3 stops with 70 laps or 4 even.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've now lost Jack Keithley, Mark Alberts, Antonio Kolarich and Peter Berliak, all within the last 2 laps, which means we now have only 18 cars left in this race. So,
and by the way,
I don't know about you, Chris, but...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was thinking we might get down the pub early.
Well, I certainly don't hope so, but it's really nice that people like Van der Linden and Carlos Martin are already into the top 10, at least for Carlos, and that can make it happen. Ivar Kalamees just pitted, and he will become... Oh, he will re-enter the track just in Wiele and just behind Dion. To see what Dion will do. Will he let Ivar, or will he force a battle with him? If he chooses to battle with Ivar, he will certainly lose time. If he does not, he might be the wiser of the two by just letting him go and let him drive his own stint.
But on the other hand, Chris, it would help his teammates. So it really depends on whether Dion wants to play the team game here. Yes, it would hold him up a little bit, but it could help Ville Lepela, and that could be crucial for the team in terms of points.
He is the team owner, so let's see what he will do.
Yes, and he's very much our Jack Brabham, is Dejan Kostadinov, running in his own team that he owns himself. Of course, Jack Brabham, a Formula 1 driver who died a couple of weeks ago, that used to run his own team and drive for it. That's what Kostadinov does here as well. Paris and Kirchhoff are all in the pit lane.
Ivar is going for it, and Dion is not defending, just opening the door and say, I'm not gonna fight you, I know you have fresh new tires, just go on and get along. Dave Greco indeed just went into the pit, and he is jumping Atse. Atse lost the position to Greco in the pit, and now it's interesting to see where these two guys are coming out on. What a mayhem for these find themselves in between Dion and Ville Lepela. So this is really amazing what we're seeing here.
And there we see what has happened. Ville Lepela's early pit stop has paid off for him because he was behind Greco and Kirchhoff before the pits.
He was, and also a big thumbs up for Ivar Kalamees on choosing the time, because he finds himself in front of this lot, and Atse and David Greco are behind him. So this move can really pay some dividend for Kalamees.
Well, Paris has been in the pits. I don't believe Martin Gosby has yet.
The leader of the race is in the pit right now. Let's see if he comes out first, and what will Martin do? Gosby will pit as well. So Morgan will definitely come out of the pits as the leader again. He switches back to super softs after 15 laps. So let's see if he will pit in lap 30 or so on.
Yep, so Morgan Moran then resumes his march as he goes towards the front. Where is Gosby going to come out?
Gosby switched to soft, by the way, from super soft.
So he's on the harder tyre, and he does manage to keep third position. So that's well timed by Twister. I was a bit worried about him pitting a little bit later, but doesn't seem to have hurt Martin Gosby.
No, indeed, and I think Martin will do around 25 laps on these tires, or maybe even towards 30, but I think 25 laps. I think Morgan will do another 15 or maybe 20, but this can really work for Martin, since he's now rid of the soft tire, and if he can make this stint work and remain in third place, or even more, then he can use the super soft tire in a later part of the race and get back at the others in front.
Yeah, it's really interesting so far. Morgan Moran has a 10-second lead. I get the feeling, though, that he's not pushing as hard as he could do at the moment, because he was extending that gap by about a second a lap at the start of the race, and just settled down a bit more now. Might well be that he just took too much out of the tyres early on, we don't know, but nevertheless, he was really flying clear at the start, and it didn't happen later on in the race. But as we know, this track may suit Morgan, but we saw 2 weeks ago, sometimes he's not as fast, like at Imola where he finished third. So it's we've already had one race where he hasn't dominated, but he seems to be back to his old self this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm sure he saw that, or he has taken notice that Bono is out of the race. And looking to the gap for him, it's quite a margin. And well, he can just drive his own race from now and just keep it on the road, and it wouldn't be a threat. But well, let's just see what happens. We saw it 2 weeks ago, where Morgan had a reasonable lead too in the first part of the race, with I believe 7 or 8 seconds, and then later in the race it vaporized. So yeah, let's keep an eye on it. Jim Paris at the moment is still following Moran, and Gosby close behind that. I don't think those two will make life hard for each other, Jim and Martin. And Martin can be a really good teammate by slowing other guys down if they catch him, because he's on the softer tire. Because Ivar Kellemees and the lot behind that are all super soft. So if he can lose time for them, then it's work for Jim.
Yes, he's got a bit more. And of course, with Gosby on those harder tyres as well, it's just interesting to see how those two strategies compare as the race goes on, because the two teams different strategies. So himself will have to run that later on as Marcel van der Linden's into pit lane.
Yes, he does.
And is on the super soft tyre. I think that's what he started on, so going to see the soft tyre at some points, and Tell comes in as well for the Mad Cape Racing team. Van der Linden on exit.
I believe there's still some debris on the road here. If we look at Van der Linden, there's still some debris on the track. A part of a wing one, for sure, but let's hope it doesn't come into part.
I'm surprised that hasn't cleared yet, which would suggest it happened fairly recently, because normally R-Factor clears debris up after, I think it's 2 or 3 laps. So
I think the Canadian marshals are just a bit lazy today. That's what I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although we are in no way, by the way, saying that about all Canadians, just so we clear that up.
No, definitely not. The marshals on this track. Now, of course, it's not like that digitally. Atsi Kerkhoff is still looking for a way past back to David Greco. David jumped him into the pit, and Atsi is not amused by that, not for a bit. And he has the softer tires. David is on the harder compound here, and Atsi is nervously to get past.
Yeah, well, of course, he's been stuck behind for a while, and the only problem is now Ville Lepela has jumped him in the pit stops as well. He's now 7th, which for Kerkhoff is uncharted territory. He's not used to running around here. He's very strong in iRacing, usually very strong when he comes into R-Factor as well. Hasn't won many races in FSR, although he has won some, but he is a driver you normally expect to be fairly close to the front, and 7th won't be what he's expecting.
Maybe not expecting from himself, but that's the way it's today, and that shows how groups are in front of him. Nice to have so many drivers with such high caliber. Having said that, the other drivers in front, they can't afford to make a mistake. Ville Lepela is so eager to get a good result, and he has such a bad luck this year and last year too. It would be really nice for him to get a great position, and who's also trying to make a good position is Carlos Martin, who's attacking Jon-Erik Saxon now for 11th place. Saxon is not defending and knows Martin can get past reasonably easy with the use of DRS. As Saxon goes through, you can have 1 or 2 pit laps, as he knows for sure. Dion Kostadinov and Blair Disley are into the pit, and they are to rejoin the track in 11th and respectively 12th spot.
Yeah, it just goes to show that they stayed out and did the usual strategy that would normally work in FSR. They were running the tyres to the end of their life. But the problem is that they've lost about 30 odd seconds doing it, 20 seconds doing it that way. It shows that Canada this weekend, you really are worth pitting a bit earlier, Chris.
Indeed, and well, maybe this is just the way it is for some guys on the setup. Definitely in the slow parts of the track, you definitely can overheat the tires a lot by putting so many steering lock on. But it might be relative from driver to driver.
Yep, certainly might. So then, Morgan Moran leads by 13.1 seconds as Ville Lepela came very close to hitting the wall of champions there, which is it's a wall that I hit in one of the sessions yesterday, so I'm hoping that bodes well for my future, Chris.
I hope so too for you, mate. I hope so too.
But yes, Ville Lepela 17.2 seconds back in 5th position, holding his own very nicely indeed. Only 1.3 seconds behind Calamaze as well, so maybe he can catch Calamaze as this race goes on. He's got the gap down to 1.3 seconds. Greco and Kirchhoff is certainly the closest battle out there on track at the moment. But 20 laps into this race, I wouldn't want to speak too much just yet, Chris, but we appear to have had 10 laps without an accident.
It has been like that, and I think most of the drivers are finding their groove now. And Atse Kerkhoff is really pushing on Greco, and Greco isn't making any way making life easy for Atse. As we can see now, Atse is so close. He's basically side by side with Greco. I would be surprised if he can't get past here.
Yeah, well, he's going to have the slipstream. Of course, he's also on the better tyres. He's on the super soft tyre. Greco's on the harder soft tyre, and he will surely get this done. Yes, he will. Down into the chicane.
Yeah, Greco will know.
Atse Kerkhoff is now 6th.
Yeah, and Greco will know I have forced 5 laps out of Atse, out of his super soft tyre, and I kept him behind. This is the advantage that could come into use, because I think Atse will just drive away from him now. As we got a back marker in the grass, he's making way perfectly. There's no confusion there.
Oh, now it's massive accident. Sorry, there's been a huge accident at the final chicane, Chris. Marcel van der Linden was flying through the air, flew over the top of the wall, and we need to get a replay of that. That is a huge accident between Marcel van der Linden and one of the Madcave cars, and we've had the massive flip.
Oh, there's Paolini.
Dino Paolini as well.
Dino Paolini, he just didn't expect van der Linden to brake already. And it would be awesome to have a replay of that. Oh, and Paolini actually crashes another car. Oh my god, just press escape, mate.
I think that might have been Adrian Rodriguez, mightn't it? I think he's come into the pit lane. I think it might have been Rodriguez. Yeah,
and now he destroyed his race as well. So Dino Paolini, sorry to say, but destroys 2 races of 2 different drivers in one corner.
And I apologise to both of them, because it's not really Dino Paolini's fault, it's my fault. I said about a lap ago, we've not had any accidents for 10 laps, which was a big mistake.
Commentator curse, indeed.
Yep, it's happened again.
So that was really unfortunate, and they're really something.
Well, we've now had 10 retirements already in this race, which means we only have 16 cars left in the race. So go get yourself on the scooter, Chris. I think you might get point.
Yeah, and this might be the strategy of Eros Masculi, although he has retired already. But yeah, 16 drivers in this race still, and I think it will decrease any more. The only thing that is increasing, Morgan Morant, he's now 15 seconds clear of the Twister Racing black car of Jim Paresis and Martin Gosby, who are still doing a great team job. I mean, Ivar Calamaze isn't closing on to Martin, while Martin has the harder compound of the two. And it's just promising to see what will happen. So let's hope we will, and let's knock on wood, so we won't have any more incidents the upcoming laps.
Now, we're both faster than speed cars out of the race. 3 of the 4 precision stable out of the race. And that is really surprising. Only Calamaze left from the precision stable. He's in 4th. But he's got Ville Lepela not far behind him, who's actually been faster on the last lap as well. So, not a good weekend for Precision GT Omega this weekend, Chris.
Not particularly, no. But, well, maybe if Calamaze can make a good result for Precision, or even a podium, it would be somewhat satisfying. But certainly not the standard they are aiming for, a podium.
Although at the moment, Lepela, I think, is now within the 1 second window for DRS, so it certainly was just over a second at the end of the last split. Let's see what it is here. It's 1.2, so I think Calamaze has just managed to ward him off. But certainly Lepela looking to have a lot of pace this weekend, and I don't know whether the move from Ghost Speed to Aventa has done him some good, Chris, but it's really looking very competitive this weekend, Lepela, something that we've come to expect from him in the past, but not so much this season till now.
No, he is a guy with high aspirations, and I'm sure he's looking for a good result to prove himself to himself that he's a great driver. Well, it's just nice to see that he finally found looking for, and he's competitive now for a podium, and he certainly has the opportunity. Also, someone who is making steps of this grid is Carlos Martin. He's now in the top 10. He's driving 9, and he's catching Johnny Simon, who's driving on the harder compound of the two, by 5 or 6 tenths each lap. And Carlos Martin is one of the drivers who's really looking for a good result. He had some bad races in the past, and really unfortunate. And he's seriously wanting to prove himself here.
Yeah, it's an interesting race so far. So it's been, well, we said at the start of the race that Canada tends to be action-packed. It certainly has been that, and all for the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but,
a little bit too much action.
We've had drivers going through the air, we've had drivers going into walls, we've had cars going straight on at turn 1, we've had all things going on. One thing that is constant is Morgan Moran's pace, which is now 16 seconds clear of Jim Parisis, and he's lapped 2 cars so far. I'm wondering, maybe that's a good question actually, how many cars will he lap?
Yeah, that's a nice bet to make, but let's hope a lot.
More a question of up to where will he lap, because it really depends on how many finish as well. We've got, we're not even halfway through this race yet, which means we need to take a Valium and go again.
It's really interesting to see how he does it, and it's really remarkable. But the real battle for the positions is behind him. I mean, if it continues like this, and you ask Morant, how was this race? Was it exciting? He will say, no, it was pretty lonely, but and boring, perhaps. But behind him is just a furious battle between a lot of top names in this league, and it will most certainly develop into a battle between them. And I'm eager to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting actually, because Martin Gosby, who could very well, the way things are going over the last couple of races, become Morgan Moran's closest challenger for the title. I'm pretty sure that if he gets up into second place, he will move up to second in the championship. I'm just going to check that one, Chris. But at the moment, he's going very well on those harder tyres and keeping very close to Parisis.
Indeed, and Martin Gosby is one of the guys who's definitely shown a lot of development in a positive way for himself. He really stepped up the pace from last year, and well, after that insecure pre-season for him, I mean, he was teamless, and he was looking everywhere for a seat, and it's nice for him that he found a seat, and he's competitive too. And the second place in the championship, that's something to write home about. I mean.
Well, it's interesting to see that we've got 27 laps on the board. Morgan Moran leads the race, and just trying to see further down the red, Positive SimRacing, they could have a very good weekend here, because Johnny Simon is in 8th place, and he's holding his own very nicely. In actual fact, he's well clear of. Well, he's about 5 seconds clear of Carlos Martin and well over 10 seconds clear of Dianka Stadanov, who's in 10th. So, very good chance of points today for Simon, who always looks a very good driver, and is certainly an ace. He's been a fantastic driver. Chris, myself and you have been driving alongside him, and he's very quick, and showing that as well here in World Championship.
Yeah, definitely a great debut race for him, and let's see where he can take it. At this moment, the difference between Morant and Parisis on the last lap was 7 tenths. So Morant stepped the pace up a little bit, and is now looking at a major gap. We have had 28 laps this race. We still have 42 to go. Even though the majority of the laps is ahead, I think it's too early to say that 100% Morgan will win it. But behind that, I mean, the battle will just continue, and we will have a tremendously big battle coming up.
Yeah, well, of course, let's not forget that we said earlier that brakes is going to be a huge problem here this weekend. So we've discovered over years of experience of Canada and FSR that you simply cannot say anyone is going to win anything until the very last lap of the race, because Canada tends to throw up those incidents.
Indeed, indeed. As Ville Lepela now has a problem and is getting jumped. Ville Lepela made a... No, he didn't... Like Atse Kerkhoff, just without DRS, made them stick through the... and what a move it was. Atse Kerkhoff now in 5th position.
Yeah, it was actually the old hairpin, the pits hairpin. Very Kerkhoff, and he manages to hold it down the... So he now is up in position and chasing after Calmaze, and we know that Kerkhoff has got pace. So interestingly, David Greco has dropped back a little bit now. He's about 4 seconds behind this battle, but he is on the harder tyre, let's not forget. Having said that, it doesn't seem to be hurting Martin Gosby very much, because he's also on the harder tyre and he's in 3rd and running at pretty much the same pace as the guys around him.
Indeed, David Greco, Atse Kerkhoff, both really big names in the online racing history, and I think this is the difference in the tyre, and this is a good measurement on how super soft tyre will reflect to the although I do think Atse will pit earlier, and David Greco held Atse up for the first 5 laps of the stint. So it might not be over yet, because Atse still has to go to the soft.
Yes, Peter Helmbro is moving out of the way of a few drivers. I think he's just moved out of the way of Simon and Martin. He's on the grass again. It's nice to see that some of the back markers really do treat the others respectfully. They get out of the way nicely, they don't cause any problems. Nice to see that from Helmbro, who again is not having a great... As Calamaze and Kerkhoff are now in the pit lane, and Lepela as well.
This is interesting.
And Greco. So all 4 of them come down pit lane. So particularly between Kerkhoff, Lepela and Calamaze, this is going to be a battle out of the pit lane as to who gets fastest. It's going to be Calamaze quite easily.
Yeah, I'm just happy nobody shares a pit box with each other here.
Yeah, we have had that in some of the other races this weekend, but luckily not happened so far today. Kerkhoff comes out in front of Carlos Martin just, and that's going to be a big advantage to him because Lepela's behind Carlos Martin.
Yeah.
So that is going to really help Kerkhoff.
And like I said earlier, Carlos Martin, obviously he still has to pit. I mean, he only did 1 pit stop now, I believe. But he's finding himself off the grid into 7th place. Remarkable.
Yeah, puts himself in 4th.
Yeah, keep it up, Johnny.
Johnny Simon is having a great race over. He's got Calamaze bearing down on him on newer tyres, so I would imagine that he will lose that position pretty quickly, but nevertheless having a good solid run. And it's nice to see a different team up there doing well for the first time, as Paris and Gosby now come in the pit lane as well.
So let's see how they will carry on.
And Jim Paris goes for the harder tyre, Martin Gosby goes back to the soft tyre.
Yeah, and let's see, I mean, Martin stayed really close behind his teammate here. And as Johnny Simon finds himself briefly into the 2nd place now, which is 3rd now, and getting into the 4th place now, but really nice from him. What I wanted to say is that between Martin and Jim, Martin just stayed behind Jim all the time while he was on the harder compound. Now he's on the softer compound and Jim is on the harder compound. I think it's a great team decision if Jim would just let Martin pass if he's reasonably faster, so Jim can hold on the pressure for him and increase the gap. So they're really working together, and really great teamwork here from Twisting.
Yeah, they certainly are. David Greco, by the way, is going very quickly on his new tyres. And just checking out, actually, on those last laps, the fastest guy on track was Atse Kerkhoff. Off that, so Greco hopefully trying to close down on people now, as now of course on the softer tyre, while Kerkhoff and Lepela are now running on the harder tyre.
Indeed, and it's going to be interesting to see what both guys can make of this. As Johnny Simon is getting overtaken by Ivar Calamaze, which just has 1 lap in on the new tyres. And Johnny isn't eager to fight with them. He knows those guys are faster on the new tires, and I think that's the wise decision if you still have to pit in a few laps.
Yeah, it certainly is. Sometimes it's just going to lose you time overall. And if you're not battling these guys for position, you have to remember, although he is being quite robust with Kirchhoff, you do have to remember that the guys that you are battling for position will only gain time on you. If you battle too much, as Kirchhoff runs very wide, I don't think you're going to get past their son. Oh, yeah, you are, because Simon's just been frightened off the track. But, oh, and then Kirchhoff gets very, very out of shape out of the corner, and Lepela is going to be right behind him, because Lepela is going to get through on Simon into this corner, I think. Yes, he is.
And he's on the super soft.
Yes, Ville Lepela is still on the super soft tyre, you're right. So,
but what a move from Asid was there. He just showed a great aggression through there and just said, I'm gonna make this move stick. I'm gonna leave you enough space, but don't think I will move any inch further for you. So really nice driving there.
Martin Gosby has passed Jim Parisis for second position while we weren't looking, and I think that may be a case, yes it was, of the twisters just switching. So Jim Parisis has let him through. As Johnny Simon now comes into the pit lane.
Like I said, and this is a great strategy from them. Jim is now getting under pressure from Ivar because he is catching them, although they are both on the harder compound. Martin can drive away now. But that's it, he can.
Yeah, Johnny Simon just had a very long pit stop and has dropped to 10. But he's dropped quite a way down and behind Blair Disley, in fact. So I don't quite know what happened there. It seemed long to me, did that pit stop. Maybe we could see maybe he had any problems there.
Yeah, and Carlos Martin just pitted as well. He's back on the track with super softs again. He finds himself back on track on 11th spot.
Yeah, so just looking at the battles out there at the moment, Ville Lepela is just over a second behind Kirchhoff. It's just a little bit more than that, so I don't think he's quite going to have DRS, but he's keeping close, and Calamaze is only a second or so up the road from these as well. It's very close between second to sixth position at the moment. Greco just under 4 seconds behind, although he has been catching as time's gone on, but he'll be hoping to get himself involved in this battle as well. Lepela, as they go across the line, let's see how far there is between all the cars. Kirchhoff pulling out of the slipstream there, interestingly, which seems a little bit odd at this stage in the race.
Yeah, but he might see that his engine is overheating above that 108 degrees. Yeah, maybe. I think it's just to be sure.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to have that, especially because the problem with engine and brake failure is that usually you've not done it totally wrong, and it's one of those gutting things that happens about 3 laps on the end. I know, because I've had it happen in, times in the past, and there's nothing more gutting than it was better to get eliminated on the first lap than to go 68 laps and then find that you're on the 69th lap, your engine fails.
Yeah, or your brakes, and if the brakes fail, you absolutely have no brakes. I mean, you don't brake. That's it. But when we talk about the brakes, it's those minor moments when your brake temperature goes over the 900 degrees.
Morgan Moran is in the pit stop, so he can go to his pit stall, read the newspaper, have a cup of tea, go back out and still be in the lead. That's the way things are going for him this afternoon, and he is well clear and comfortably back out in the lead.
Well, do they drink a lot of tea in France?
I don't know, is the honest truth. Whatever the French have got, Pressy can have a glass of champagne.
I think he will. But definitely nice from him, and the back marker there going out the way as it should be done. Really nice from him as well. And yeah, he's comfortably in the lead. So he pitted in lap 50, I remember, and it's now 35. So he did 20 laps on those tires, and is now back on the super softs and flying.
Yep, certainly is. So looking at Moran's lead, 17 seconds. It's pretty good. He's now lapped Matt Sentel in the Mad Cape Racing Team car. You can see him behind him there. So that means that he's lapped up to 14th place, which sounds brilliant, but it's not quite as good today because there's actually only 16 runners. We did start with 26, but they all exited stage left, threw themselves at the scenery and various things, and now we've only got just the 16 left in the race.
Yeah, it's really an interesting development, and I'm just happy to say that we haven't had any more incidents at this moment. Everyone is finding their groove, and is grooving on their pace. So the race is halfway now, the 36 laps, so we're just over halfway, and well, besides Morgan just driving away from the rest of the pack, we still have a lot of contenders for a podium. I mean, it's still possible for David Greco, who's only 8.5 seconds behind second place Martin Gosby.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's just been very close behind Moran, who has been in a league of his own and different postcodes this afternoon. The rest of the drivers, as you say, Chris, are very close together, and David Greco, who of course doesn't have to run that harder tyre again now, he could even have a chance of getting a podium. That's the situation we find ourselves in. Gosby hasn't pulled away from Paris as much as I thought he would, actually, since he's taken this position, and Kirchhoff is all over the back of Calamaze.
Indeed he is, and he will certainly have DRS here, but doesn't find the exit he was looking for out of the hairpin. But nevertheless, he can make up for this in the DRS zone and after the chicane as well.
Yep, and of course this is where he gets that second burst that Chris talked about, but he was clumsy over the chicane, and I think that's lost him time. Hit the curb on the second of the curbs, and sometimes when you hit that, it just causes problems, and you run wide. As we've got one of the back markers emerging there from the pits, I think. But Arsene Kirchhoff then into 5th position at the moment. Near the hairpin we hear, so that might be why he didn't get a good run out of the corner. We saw the tail end of it, but obviously nearly collided with Calamaze.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. Tijan Kostadinov and Blair Disley just pitted simultaneously, and that allowed Carlos Martin to retake 8th position, and is now hunting for David Greco.
Yeah, Johnny Simon came back in as well, which is only 4 laps after he was last in the pit lane.
That is really unfortunate, and there's definitely something else going on in that camp. Now it gets really exciting, as we could go on board with Phil Lepela. He doesn't find a great exit there, but there was really not much room to spare to those 3 guys, Ivar, Atse and Phil. But 2 of those will have DRS, and Ivar just has to defend from this lap now.
And Ville Lepper clunks that curb, and that was really, somebody's going to end up in that Wall of Champions before long. I'm fairly certain of it, the way that they're clunking the curb in that final corner. I'm saying that because I know that if I said earlier that we'd have no crashes and then immediately someone crashed, I feel if I say someone will crash that we might get clean to the end of the race. That's my theory.
Yeah, let's hang on to that. At the moment the marbles are really forming on the track. And we just passed halfway through, so let's not hope that will create any situation. I think if we look on the amount of pit stops now, I think most drivers will look for a 3 or 4 stop.
Yeah, certainly looks that way. Ville Lepela is again very close to Kirchhoff into the final hairpin, and he's much better on the brakes down into that hairpin as well. The thing is, of course, Lepela is on the better tyre. He's on the soft tyre. Oh! As he runs a little bit too much over that curve and hits the grass there on the exit as they go down the casino straight. So that won't have helped him, but he pulls out of the slipstream as well. So a few drivers here struggling with engine temperatures, it would seem. A lot better through the chicane that time for Lepela, though, and he's got a good run on Kirchhoff, but it's not going to be close enough.
No, and about the engine temperatures, I don't think they are just eager to take the extra risk. I mean, you do gain a little bit in the slipstream, but indeed, what if that scenario on lap 69 where your engine fails and you think, oh, if I just, you know? So, yeah, those guys are really looking the race as a complete picture, and yeah, it's wide.
Yeah, it's got Adrian Rodriguez behind them, who's a lap down, so he's not worth worrying about. David Greco hasn't really made the headway he'd have liked on this set of tyres. Just looking at the other drivers, as now Fabrizio Gobbi has gone a lap down as well. They're really struggling for grip in places here. Lepler again runs slightly wide over that chicane, and that lost him a lot of time. He's actually lost about a second there to Kirchhoff.
Indeed, and he's on the Supersoft tyre. He one that it should be for these two harder on the track. Instead, it's the other way around. And Ville might be not adapting properly to the tyres. Nevertheless, Ats is now really pressuring me. Well, it has been the same story for the last. But Ivar is just too fast on the straights.
Yep, so Morgan Moran, by the way, update, 21 seconds clear now. As Ville Lepela runs very wide in turn one, goes across the grass and spins, and he's in the wall. And he's lost his rear wing. That is going to be the end of the race, surely, for Ville Lepela. And my theory didn't work, because we're going to have another retirement. Oh, that is such a shame. It was such a good race from Ville Lepela.
Yeah, it certainly was, and I was so hoping for him he would get the drive he was looking for. But it's not working out for him, and well, it's only one mistake that you need. We all getting a little twitchy in the last few laps, and unfortunately he retired, and there might be something wrong with his car. Nevertheless, very disappointing for him.
Well, it goes to show that we really are going to see pretty much finishes from everyone who pretty much everyone who finishes today is going to get points the way things are going, because I think we're down to 14 runners now, which is only 4 more than the actual points tally goes down to. So a few more retirements, and you would expect that we will probably see some brake failures at some point. We normally do here, unfortunately, and we're going to be down to almost 10 anyway.
Yeah, that's really great. And as you just mentioned, that David Greco just found himself with a lot of overheating on his brakes. Ivar is now really getting threatened by Adse, and well, this kind of battling will take a lot of the brakes as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Johnny Simon is getting very close to Jon-Erik Saxon in the battle for 9th place now. So Johnny Simon, who had that extra trip through the pits early on, we're not sure why, 4 laps after he previously pitted, but you know, he's still going to be getting some points either way. So he's looking at Jon-Erik Saxon. President, of course, is Jon-Erik Saxon as well, but not quite as mean a racer as he used to be at the moment. Probably doesn't have time to practice, I shouldn't imagine, with all the paperwork and presidency things that he has to do. But Johnny Simon, I would imagine it's going to be a matter of time before he gets past. And will he have a look down into Concord? No, he won't. Thinks better of it. Not really an overtake of place Concord. You can make a move there, but you have to be very bold. So I think the next chance for him will probably be the pits hairpin, Chris.
Yeah, Adse did that nicely with Simon earlier in the race. Remember? That was a really nice move for them.
Yeah, it certainly was, and it just shows it can be done. You have to be bold, and Kirchhoff certainly is that. They come down into the pits hairpin now. Simon doesn't do it there either, but of course he gets DRS. He's pushing Jon-Erik Saxon through the corner. He's going, get on with it, mate. I need to go faster. So he's going down the straight now, and he's going to have the DRS, and this is going to be a big chance for Simon. Has he got enough straight line speed to get up the inside, down into the final chicane? I think he might have. No. So he has to stick behind again, but of course he gets a second burst now. Can he get a good run out of the final chicane? It's decent. It's not fantastic, though, and I think Saxon might keep this into turn 1. Yes, he will.
Awesome move.
So Johnny Simon is being held up here a little bit. It's the closest battle we have on track at the moment. It's getting a little bit closer between Kirchhoff and Calamy, so we'll go back to that in a minute as Saxon gets sideways out of turn 4, and that should give Simon a chance. Surely. No. Still no chance for him to get actually through, but he's all over the gearbox. And Johnny Simon is going to have another great chance now. Is he down into the chicane? No. So again, he's going to the pits hairpin. He runs a little bit deep, and that might have ruined it for him. as Gobby comes back into the pit lane, but we'll keep with this. Johnny Simon down into the hairpin. Again, very late on the brakes, again pushing Jon-Erik Saxon through the corner. And he really has a lot of speed through there. He'd almost be better off running wide and cutting back in so that he can keep his momentum. Because unfortunately, while he's pushing Saxon through the corner, it just means he loses his momentum up the straight. So he might be better taking a wider entry so that he can use the momentum that he clearly has in that corner, Chris.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that although Jon-Erik didn't race as much the last years, and he was pretty much making the admin decisions, he hasn't lost it. It's fair to be said. Although Johnny Simon finds himself on the inside now, and if he can get better traction, he will can dive in the inside, and he certainly is going for it. And Jon-Erik let him live there. I mean, and instantly Blair Disley is challenging Eric as well. So because Eric had to go out of the way, he gets passed by both of them.
Yeah, and further up the grid, Atsej Kirchhoff is now very close to Ivar Kalamies. They're just coming into the pit straight now, and you can see that the gap has really come down, and Kirchhoff and David Greco, interestingly, is making some pretty good headway as well in 6th place. He's only 3.5 seconds behind these guys, so he's making up some time on them as well. Of course, he's on the softer tyre now, so they're on the harder tyre doing their stint on that, and that's what's allowing Greco to close back in a little bit. Kirchhoff, though, well, he's just goes to show Atsej Kirchhoff very, very successful in iRacing, of course, along with people like Gregor Hutu and people like that. But he's 30.5 seconds behind Morgan Moran. Although, having said that, Martin Gosby in 2nd place is 22.5 behind, so he's not alone there. But that's just goes to show it's not really been the best of days for Kirchhoff, despite him being in 5th.
Yeah, but definitely a great driver. Not only very successful in the online world. Also, last December he tested for Van Amersfoort Racing in a Formula 3 car at the Catalunya circuit in Barcelona, and he did really well there as well. Either way, I think he can pass Ivar with a little bit of luck, and the Jim is certainly not out of reach. So. I think the podium, the last spot on the podium will be fought out between Jim, Ivar and Atsej. And maybe Greco can even close up them. But although Greco isn't making the most out of his stint, or Ivar and Atsej are just really driving so good on the harder compound, but David is on the super soft tire, and he's not closing in that much.
No, very true. Actually, he's still he's actually gone up 4.1 seconds behind, so the soft tyre starting to go away from him a little bit as well, as Kalamies kicks up some dust through to sector 1, and Kirchhoff is just looking for any sniff of a mistake from Callum.
Yeah,
is not probably going to happen that off, because Kalamies, despite the fact that he's not necessarily been as fast as he would like this year, doesn't make many mistakes.
You know what I would like to see that one of these guys would do, and that is to pit within a few laps of now, go back to the soft tire instead of pitting in like 10 laps and go on to the super soft. Or now it's 35, I thought it was 25 laps to go. But if they pit with like 30 or 25 laps to go and they go back on the super softs, it might pay more dividend than waiting longer and going to the super softs later.
No, it is 25 laps to go, Chris, so that would be fine.
That would be, that's a little bit confusing for me then. So if one of them would pit now and take the risk of taking the slower tire, it might be a better decision than waiting a few more laps to go on the super soft.
We'll hunt down Chris' maths tutor and give him a good talking to later on. Anyway, I'd say Kirchhoff is doing well in 5th position at the moment, and he's just lost a little bit though through sector 1 to Kalamies that time, and it's gone up to 0.8 of a second. I think he made a slight mistake through turn 3 and 4, so just not quite so good through that section this time.
Indeed, but what is clear is that all these guys will have to pit once more. I mean, 35 laps or even 40 on the stint. So it's interesting to see what the strategies will come out on, and will they all choose the same tire, or will there be some difference? Atse is just so struggling to get by, and for the last couple of laps it has been almost agonizing to see him struggle. I mean, he's just really looking forward to it. And he just needs one mistake from Ivar, but Ivar...
Certainly the case at the moment, and Mark, by the way, is now 4.3 seconds clear of his teammates, so he really has extended that gap since overtaking him a few laps ago. And Gosby seems to have a handle on second position now. Calamise and Kirchhoff are close together in 4th and 5th place, as we've mentioned. David Greco is 6th at the moment. Carlos Martin is quite a long way behind that in 7th, and has Bianca Stadanov very close behind him at the moment. As they go through turn 1, there's Kastadanov on the softer tyre and Martin on the harder tyre, which might explain that. No, he isn't. He is on the soft tyre, sorry. Had a brief momentary lapse there, but Kastadanov right behind him in that battle for 8th. Simon is 9th, Blair Disley is in 10th. So possible points there for Ghost Speed. Quite a few points today for Ghost Speed, actually, if the way things carry on as they are, because they've got Kirchhoff in 5th and Disley in 10th. So both cars in the points, which is nice to see, because they've not had a good season.
No, they have not, and it's really a result that they have been looking for. For Dion Kostadinov in Eventa SimRacing, it's really disappointing so far. I mean, he has so many driver switches. I mean, every race he has had a different driver, basically. And now that Villa was doing so great, he has a DNF as well in 5th place some laps ago. So, still, he's in the top 10 himself. He's in 8th place, and he can get some good points.
We've just been told that Jim Paris has missed the chicane, which is why he's dropped down to 5th place. So he's now behind Calamise and Kirchhoff, which means that Paris is again looking very out of shape there. Some cars are really struggling today, and Jim Paris is going quite slowly, actually. He's dropping off the back of these two a little bit, so I wonder if maybe there's just the first hint missing the chicane. I mean, we saw in the Formula 1 race that Lewis Hamilton, that was the first corner he missed when he had that brake problem, was the final chicane. So that's often where it's, and he's very out of shape. I think he's got a brake problem, Chris.
I think he has well, at least has one sort of problem, and he's really anxious on the brakes, it seems. And well, let's just hope it isn't too serious, but the gap he's creating between the guys in front of him is serious.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we're seeing this get very close together as Calamise comes into the pit lane. So he's doing what you were saying, Chris. He's going to come into the pit lane and try and get the undercut. Greco comes in as well. Greco was closing down on those two, so he might be trying to get a run on Kirchhoff as well by pitting a little bit earlier. Yeah,
let's see if that's the way to go here. And well, they sure know that Jim has a problem, so yeah, it's going to be close. Ivar now exits the pits, so does David. Ivar rejoins in 5th place. Although Carlos Martin could make life hard for David, but he does not. So David is back in 6th position.
Yeah, David Greco in 6th place. Carlos Martin in 7th place. So Greco comes out and he's on the super soft tyre again, so going to try and do 21 laps on the super soft tyre. I think that should be possible, more than possible actually at the end of a stint, so that's not an issue. Kirchhoff then, when will Kirchhoff pit? That is the next question.
Yeah, I don't see any pit light on this dashboard, so I think he will carry on. I think the minimum pit window for the super soft tyre has actually opened a few laps ago. But he might be thinking, oh, he is pitting now. So, never mind what I said there. He's pitting at this moment, and I'm curious to see where he will rejoin. Did he lose out this last lap, and will the others have a great in-lap? It's important to not lose time here.
Yeah, and Jim Paris is in as well. Whatever, if he has got a brake problem, it's only minor at the moment, because he is able to carry on round, although he's having a very long pit stop.
Yeah, he is, and Ivar is already into turn 2, as is David Greco, but he is jumping Greco. So Greco is behind Atse Kirchhoff, and does find himself in a back marker that goes out of the way, as it should be done. But Atse Kerkhoff now on the hunt for a podium, but Ivar also switched to super softs, and it's just going to be a spectacular last 20 left.
Yeah, Kerkhoff definitely lost time by pitting later though, because gap was non-existent before. He's now 2.5 seconds to Calames, and the only problem he's got is that his tyres are only going to be newer, so there isn't going to be a huge amount of performance. Paris, by the way, has now dropped down with that long pit stop. He's behind Carlos Martin as well.
Yeah, Carlos Martin just making his way up to the field, and he's looking for a great and capitalizing on the mistakes that others. He's the one who keeps his head cool at them. And well, he's even made the gap work to David Greco, although I do think Carlos will pit really soon.
Martin Gosby has been in the pit lane, gets on his way, and will keep second position.
Yeah, as I just said, that Carlos Martin is pitting at the moment. He will obviously go back to the super soft tires. Jim Paris is jumping him, as is Jan Kostadinov. So Jim Paris he might have solved the problem into the pit. Maybe he just had a huge flat spot, I don't know. But he found himself some pace again, although he is dropping next position.
Yeah, he's definitely driving very fast at the moment. His last lap time is a 1:19.2, so that's a very good lap time. So there's nothing wrong with Paris's car now, that's for certain, Chris. And what's he got? He's got 10.8 seconds behind Greco. 18 laps to go. That he could catch that.
Yeah, you could.
So yes, so Paris is really pushing it now. So definitely hasn't got too much problem at the moment, and he's looking okay, Paris. And he's going to try and narrow that gap. He's down to 10.1 seconds already, so he's really nailing it now on the fresh tyres, the fresh rubber. And as Chris said, maybe he just had a flat spot that was hurting him towards the end of that stint. Morgan Moran is 38.8 seconds in the lead now, which is amazing, really, ahead of Martin Gosby. Ivar Calames is in third. Atse Kerkhoff closing down on him. He's already got that gap down to 1.5 seconds again. So that is coming down, is that gap, and it's good to see that he's getting some games in.
Yeah, it's nice to see that we will still have this race. Both drivers want this podium, and especially Ivar. I mean, Atse is not really a competitor for the championship, as he is, well, basically a sort of guest driver today. Really competitive guest driver, mind you. But Ivar is really putting his teeth in, and he's saying, like, I want this result, I need this result.
Yeah, and he does, because Calames has not had the greatest of seasons, as we touched on earlier, and once again today he didn't. Oh no, he did make Q2, sorry, he qualified 6th, but his qualifying performances haven't been great, his race performances haven't always been great, and it's not been one of those seasons to remember for Calames so far. You know, he's a past winner of World Championship. He'd expect a lot more out of himself. So he definitely needs a podium, I think, for his confidence. And so far this year, he's not really been close to podiums on many occasions.
Indeed. And someone who's doing a great business today is obviously Morgan Moran, but certainly Martin Gosby getting those points in. But the race isn't finished yet. We will definitely see 1 or 2 drivers that have a brake problem. I mean, it's so hard here for the brakes. You have so many corners where you approach with over 320 kilometers an hour, or at least 310, and the brakes temperatures just rise to a critical level. And if you do that too often, then you won't make it to the end.
Yeah, I think as you say, Chris, we are bound to see some brake issues before the end. Martin Gosby, interestingly, after this race, would not go in front of Bono Hui's championship. He'd be 7 points behind, but he would have narrowed that gap considerably. And I think Martin had a DNF earlier in the year as well, so that was probably why this would not give him second place in the championship, but it certainly would put him a lot closer.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel sorry ball. If I would have placed anywhere on the track, just for the spectating point of view, I would place him right in between Atse and Ivar and see what happens, you know. But yeah, better luck next time. And sometimes internet does fail, or the computer. It's really not fun.
Yeah, by the way, the fastest man on track by a long, long way is Carlos Martin in the other Netrex car, who's just set a 1:18.6 on the last lap. He's in the 1:18s again on this lap with a 1:18.8. That is super fast.
Nice.
Johnny Simon comes into the pit lane again. So a lot of pit stops for Simon today.
Yeah, definitely has had a problem, as we mentioned earlier, where he had to just like drive through the pit and had an issue. But Carlos Martin, really great from him, and yeah, let's see if he can make some more places. Dejan Kostadinov is right in front of him, as is Jim Paresis.
Yeah, he's just had the fastest lap stolen off him though by Atse Kirchhoff, who's done a 1:18.603.
Yeah,
and now
Atse
takes
is
the
now
fastest lap of
really
the race.
Atse is really close to Ivar, and I think with DRS, let's see what top speed he can reach. Ivar is going defensive, but realizes that the gap is too hard. And next to this corner, Atse isn't finding the run he needs, and well, it's basically not possible to go as true here. But definitely Atse not giving up on this podium, and keeping the pressure where it should be.
Yeah, Carlos Martin as well, very close. Oh, we've had a spin out of the final corner. I think it's Gobby. It looked like a Venus Project racing car, and Kolarec is already out, so I think that's Gobby that's been off the track.
Yeah, it is Gobby.
Carlos Martin slides slightly through turn 2. He was looking to get up the inside, and it was a brake failure from Gobby into the final corner, which is not where you want it. So that's why he hit the wall. He had a brake failure.
So with 15 laps to go, we already see brakes failing. I just hope people will not get brake failures. I would worry if I was Atse. I mean, he's constantly into the dirty air of Ivar. So yeah, really fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, and he's going to have a good run out of the final chicane, the hairpin here, sorry, as he goes down the straight. He's going to have DRS all the way down here, and then he's going to have it again coming out of the final chicane. I don't think he's going to get up the inside into the chicane, but if he gets a good run through here, he may... Oh, I'll tell you what he nearly did. He nearly ran into the back of Calames. And in actual fact, I think that meant he lost momentum, because he was so surprised at how much better he was on the brakes than Calames. Yeah. He nearly ran into the back of him.
But Carlos Martin now challenging Dejan Kostadinov for 7th place with the DRS open, is trying to take a look, but the isn't there. There were still 2 car lengths to go. Carlos keeps his head cool and focuses on a better position than this. Jim Paresis on the meanwhile is driving his own race in 6th position. He will definitely be disappointing, and I'm really curious to know what happened to him. It was so that he to go off the throttle, but now he's okay again. So yeah,
Carlos Martin is he just ran very deep into turn 1, which is a little bit of a worry, but because it did look like he was braking as hard as he could because the tyres locked up. But let's hope that is not the sign of another brake issue. Morgan Moran has been in the pits.
Atse Kirchhoff is so close now. I mean, if he gets an opportunity, it should be here. I mean, Ivar does have the better traction, but as the DRS is kicking in, he will get an opportunity. Ivar is going defensive to the right, Atse on the left, and he brakes actually later on the outside, and they make contact. A little bit of pushing through, but Atse is getting the best of it, really putting the aggression down. I don't know if that was completely legal, but yeah, Ivar didn't leave him also enough space, but really courageous from Atse to go from the outside here. What a move.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because he was pulling in, but he had to pull in. So it's a case of, you know, what do you think with that one? I mean, it's not really a very wide corner to make a move like that, but he had a good run and he decided, I'm going to go for this.
I think we will not have spoken the last words of this. I think we will leave that in Charlie Whiting's room. But no, Ivar is thinking now, okay, you got past, and I'm certainly not happy with how that went. But he's not giving up. He's in the DRS detection zone, and I think Ivar has a better advantage in the DRS than Atse had. because the Precision Motorsport car is just faster in a straight line, and that just multiplies with DRS. So let's see, here we go. Will he get closer? He
might do. He's got a decent straight line speed as Calames. He's got 330 kilometers an hour. That's amazing. The highest top speeds that we've seen this year. So Carlos Martini's dropping off the back of Jan Kostadinov, and I'm wondering if he has got a brake issue brewing there, because he was so much faster than Kostadinov and was causing him all kinds of problems, and now he's dropping off the back a little bit. He's actually 1.1 seconds behind.
Yeah, that is worrying. Let's have the best hopes for that situation. Let's see now how it goes with the rest of them. David Greco is still fighting in 5th position, and he might take Calames. Atse is now pretty clear of Ivar, and Ivar has to let Atse go. But David Greco is tasting blood right now and thinks, I have 12 laps to go to close a 2-second gap. I can do this.
That can't be pleasant, tasting blood. But anyway,
no, but it's a saying.
Yeah, let's see if he shows the back of his tongue at some point. He probably will. Fabrizio Gobbi has now left the game, unfortunately, after that unfortunate brake failure. He's the only one with sin so far. I don't know what you think, Chris. We normally see them in the last 6 or 7 laps, don't we? So we might be seeing some in the next few laps of those. Gobbi's obviously just particularly harsh on his brakes.
Yeah, it might be. It might be just those little moments where the brake temperature just skyrockets over the 900 degrees, and those moments are critical. Let's see how the other drivers manage to cope with this. Like I said earlier, Atse has been driving 20 or 25 laps behind, literally just behind Ivar Calames, and I promise you that the dirty air will have a reduced effect on the cooling, and it might be something that comes into play.
Yeah, it may well be. David Greco, by the way, has now got the gap to Calames down to a second, and yes, he's going to be in that dirty air. But Greco hasn't really been battling all race long with people, so I shouldn't imagine that engine trouble will be something for him to worry about. He's not been battling with many people earlier on, but he's not really been stuck behind other cars an awful lot. He's been in his own clean air, so that will probably help him.
Yeah, and as you just said that, I mean, he's just later on the brakes than Ivar, and it seems earlier on the throttle, although he does get a little bit of wheel spin there. It's promising, and I think Atse did the job at the moment it should have been done, and he's now really clear of Ivar. And Ivar has to be cautious that David Greco isn't jumping in with him as well.
Yeah, he does, and especially for Precision Motorsports, given that there are only 14 cars in this race, this is not going to be the best points haul for them the way things are going, because they are going to be... Calames will want to be getting at least 4th. He would have been hoping for a podium in this afternoon.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that's not going to happen now, because Kirchhoff is definitely pulled well clear of him. It's 2.6 seconds now, and Greco is only 9/10 of a second behind. Definitely going to be pressurizing in these last 10 laps.
Yeah, definitely, and as you said that, indeed, 10 laps to go, and the pressure is on for some, and for some it's not. And for the one it's not, that's Morgan Morant. He's now 25 seconds ahead of Martin Gosby, and well, that's just epic. We have 14 people remaining in this race, and that's a staggering amount of DNFs we got today. So Canada lives up to its name. But the race is not over. I think it's over for the podium, but we still have the precision car of Ivar Calames and the Twister Racing car of David Greco that we will follow closely.
Yep, they will, although with the amount of time it's been taking cars to get past this weekend, Greco might not have enough time to get past.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Carlos Martin is making a move to Jan Kostadinov. They are side by side. Carlos is on the outside of the chicane, and that's a clean move from Carlos Martin, and Jan let himself live. Definitely the way it could be done by Atse and Ivar. The stakes were just too high there, I believe.
Yep, so the next guy for Carlos Martin, he's got 9 laps to catch 3.8 seconds on Jim Paresis. As, oh, we've got a retirement. I think that's Helmbro.
Yeah, that's Helmbro. So that's number 14 right there that will retire. Although he is driving on now, but he just has absolutely no brakes. I should quit if I were you,
Martin
Peter.
Gosby, sorry to cut across you, Chris. Martin Gosby, I think, has lost his brakes because he's dropped.
Oh no.
And yeah, he's looking like he's on. So this is going to be another retirement. Mark has dropped down the order. That pushes Atsay Kirchhoff into 2nd position. And Calamese into 3rd. Greco 4th. And I think that Gosby has had a brake failure here. Kirchhoff has come into... Hang on.
This is really something. But Gosby is carrying on. If he does have a brake failure with 8 or 7 laps to go, that is just not safe to drive. But let's see. Yeah, Martin Gosby is going onto the brakes he still has with 250 meters to spare.
Kirchhoff out. Kirchhoff is out. He's had a brake failure. Atsay Kirchhoff is out of this race with 9 laps to go. We have 13 cars left, and Gosby is going round on, well, 2nd best brakes, to say the least. And Greco is now falling down the order. He's going out.
Greco is out too. What are we seeing here? This is amazing.
And so all of a sudden, nobody seems to want to finish this race. Greco and Kirchhoff both out of the race. Martin Gosby is going round on second-hand brakes. 12 cars left in this race out of the 20 started. We have got just had 4 races in the space of about 200 meters.
Yeah, Martin Gosby is desperately looking for some points here. He doesn't mind if it's 8th spot or whatever, but he's braking at 200 or 300 meters before and just decelerating with the use of his gears. And well, this is just epic. He will be catched. He will definitely be catched by Jim Paresis and Carlos Martin and Dion, if they just can keep it together now, because this is really epic what we're seeing here.
It is amazing. It's an interesting race for a very different reason this weekend. And I'd just like to give a shout out to some of our South African friends, because Mad Cape Racing Team, in the shape of Matt Sentel, are going to be up into 10th position with a chance of their first World Championship point. And I think that's worth us mentioning. Matt Sentel will be in 10th place.
Yeah, this is really amazing stuff. So Atse, David, were so struggling all the time behind other cars, and it just broke them up. They were just, oh, this is so unfortunate for them.
Yeah, so going on here, Chris. Let's see if we could try and get our breath up.
Yeah, and Morgan Brown, the best brakes of the lot. I mean, he has been in clear air since lap 1, so I'm not really worried about that. What might be worrying is Martin Gosby now. Jim Paresis is going to overtake him, and surely he will not make life hard for his teammate right there. But let's see if he doesn't get catched out, because Gosby is braking so early. Jim is not expecting it. And I hope that Martin Gosby will count this effect in, because Carlos Martin is behind him, and he doesn't know that Martin Gosby has a brake failure.
Jim Paresis has got past Gosby, so Gosby has now fallen to 4th. It's a question of how far does he fall. I think he's definitely going to finish behind Martin and Kostadinov. Simon is a further 20 seconds back.
If we can go on board with Carlos Martin here, who's driving in an amazing 5th place. I mean, Martin Gosby braking so early might catch him out. And this is certainly not a scenario we would hope for. Definitely not for Carlos Martin, who started this race in 22nd position, I believe, and is now find himself into 4th place.
Yeah, actually, he's being quite bright about this, is Gosby. He's pulling off the line in every corner so that they can just go through, and that's what he's done. So that's good from Gosby. He's just got out of the way and let Martin and Kostadinov through, although Kostadinov runs wide.
Will he have another brake failure? I certainly don't hope so for him, but what are we seeing right here?
I think he has, because let's have a look into this next corner. No, that looks okay, but
reasonably.
They're all just running around and just trying desperately to save these brakes so close to the end. Helmbro, by the way, who's had a pretty eventful day. We've seen him off the track on the grass a few times. He's actually up in 12th now, purely because there's really only 12 runners.
It would be funny if Dion and Martin Gosby would have a brake failure of themselves, and they would be like Mercedes, broken cars battling each other, you know? It's like, oh, what is this weird situation? Carlos Martin now, he's tasting a podium, and 5th place.
Yeah, and it's Morgan Moran, by the way, serenely pushes on. He's 39 seconds clear. He's got just over 4 laps to go, and it's looking very, very good for him at the moment for a fourth win, out of 5. A pretty good day, and crucially for him, Bono Huis and Martin Gosby are not going to get very good points out of this race because both of them have had brake failures of one sort or another, although Gosby is still lapping round. Bono Huis actually, had a disconnect after 4 laps, so that's the way it's gone for them. And perfect day for Morgan Moran because his championship challengers are losing quite a lot of points.
Yeah, and he's doing the job that he would expect from himself. And
Matt Sentel, I think, has just had the pit lane bug because he came into the pit lane and drove straight through. We've had this a few times this weekend where there's been problems with not being able to see a pit box, although having said that, he may have come through the pit lane because he has no brakes, and that is really unfortunate because Madcape were on for their first point. I'm not sure it's going to happen because how far is Adrian Rodriguez behind him? Can he cruise round and get these points? Rodriguez is about 30-40 seconds behind, so if Sentel's bright about it, the problem is he's going to be lapping very slowly. But I think he's going to attempt to try and cruise round and get these points.
Yeah, and it's such a hunt for points now. I mean, all those drivers who are driving in the top 5 now did not expect this to happen. And I'm just really curious to see if Carlos Martin can snatch this podium away from Jim Paresis. And will do an astonishing job there. Martin Gosby, with his broken brakes, is still driving around into 6th place. But he will surely get caught up by Johnny Simon.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, 3 laps ago we said that gap was 20 seconds, it's now 7, so it's coming down pretty quickly.
Really quickly.
Adrian Rodriguez has also run out of brakes, so that might keep Sentel in the... I don't even know if anybody's going to be left here.
So this is what Eros Masculi was thinking about, you know? When he was changing his car into the pit and for 3 laps. But, well...
Yeah, I mean, Helmbro could end up in the points here because if Sentel and Rodriguez don't make it to the end, as Sentel runs over the grass at turn 3 and 4, and they're really struggling here with brakes. Johnny's now just 6.2 seconds behind. We're trying to keep with everything here, but about half of cars that are left running in this race have virtually no brakes. They're just cruising around and trying desperately to come off the accelerator earlier to the corner without going across the field to do that. I think Sentel's doing a great job. Just gone off the track, but he's just trying to get round desperately because he knows how crucial these points would be for a small team like Madcape.
Yeah, definitely. It's a point that counts, and yeah, it's like it's like that. But well, still, with 2 laps to go, if he takes it really, really slow, he could. But let's just see.
Yeah, John-Eric Saxon is in 9th, by the way. He's going to get some points out of this for the Avid Chronic Racing team. They might get more.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Jim Paresis went wide. Carlos Martin finds himself now just behind him. I don't think he will be able to use the DRS. No, he is not. But he's certainly in the slipstream and makes him go defensive. Carlos Martin.
Brake failure, Paresis. Where's he going to end up?
God. Jim Paresis just flies through the air and collects his car into the barrier. Is able to continue though, but Carlos Martin is driving around in 3rd place, having started from back of the grid.
Well, all these guys knew that this was going to be a problem this weekend, but none of them seem to have accounted for it, and they all pushed the boundaries, and it's all catching them out. Jim Paresis is down.
John-Eric Saxon is off the track and in the gravel. He has to retire now as well. In 9th place, he has a brake failure.
Another brake failure. So we've got about 2 cars left running that have actually got brakes of some kind. This is great. I mean, Saxon's come back on the circuit, in fact, so he may still get 9th. But but he has no brakes, so he's going to have to do the same thing as Sentel and cruise around for the last lap. Meanwhile, Morgan Moran is 46 seconds clear now. Ivar Calames is second, Carlos Martin is third. It could be a double podium for Netrex.
It might as well be, and I'm just curious at Moran's reaction. He's like, action? You know, what action? You know, he just had a solo race.
French accent.
Terrible French accent. My English accent is better. But Morgan Moran lap to go is definitely clinching this victory. Fingers crossed. And Ivar Calames is just impressing with a second place here, best of the rest. We have one lap to go.
Hang on a second, we've got Gosby and Paresis are going together. Neither of them have got brakes, so this should be interesting down into the chicane. They both managed to get on it. Gosby goes to the outside, and they're going to collide. They are, they've knocked each other out.
What are you doing, guys? We have spoken about teamwork earlier on. This is quite the opposite of it, and now Johnny Simon has come through. So this is another point loss, and
meanwhile, Morgan Moran wins the race. Sorry, we're just getting... Morgan Moran has come across the line and has won the FSR Canadian Grand Prix. He had no problems. Everybody else did. But Blair Disley has finished 8th as well, a lap down. So he will get 4 points, which is nice for him, for the Go Speed team. Although Kirchhoff won't get any, so it didn't turn out to be as good all day as it might have been.
Ivar is braking so early. It's incredible. He might... Well, he's just taking it calm. Why shouldn't he be? The gap is hard.
Matt Sentel is out of the race, so he will not get that point. So that's going to be Adrian Rodriguez. Johnny Simon, let's watch Johnny Simon. Calames is going to finish second. Simon is pretty much closed up on Jim Paresis for 5th place, because Paresis, as we know, has no brakes. So Johnny Simon here has a chance going into the final few corners. Calames has finished second as Paresis gets on the brakes. Johnny Simon's spun out, and oh dear me, I think he's got no brakes as well. Disley finishes 8th, Saxon's 9th, Martin's third, Kostadinov 4th for Eventa SimRacing. And I think Paresis, despite having no front wing or any brakes, that car is well, you wouldn't sell it, you wouldn't give it to your grandmother now, would you? Really, it's just really in very bad condition.
Failures. The Paresis, Gosby, and Simon all have brake failures. So the only guys without brake failures are the Netrex team, and they finished 1 and 3. So Morgan Moran already doing donuts. Ernesto De Angelis is well, willing to pay the 25 IA to that. Eh? But what a great race it has been, and what a spectacle we have seen. This is really amazing. And if you would think it would be somewhere, then you would say Canada for sure. I mean, and every year it's the same, and Canada just lives up to its expectations.
Yeah, certainly. Let's go through the grid. Morgan Moran then finished first, because it did change a bit in the final few laps, so we might need a check on this. Morgan Moran finished first. Ivar Calames finished second for Precision Motorsport, so it turned out very well for Calames. Carlos Martin finished third with apparently no brakes, no fuel either, so came across the line with 0.2 litres, which I think is cutting it fine in the extreme. So... He just about managed to make it a double podium. Kostadinov 4th, Paresis 5th, Gosby 6th, Johnny Simon 7th, Blair Disley 8th, John-Eric Saxon 9th, Adrian Rodriguez 10th, Matt Sentel didn't make the end of the race, Peder Helmbro did but was classified 12th, David Greco at 13th. These are all the guys that didn't finish. Greco, Kirchhoff, Gobby, Lepela, Van der Linden, Paulini, Keithley, Alberts, Kolarec, Berliak, Mashuli, Van Starkenberg, Huis, and De Witt. None of them crossed the line. So in the end, we actually only had 11 cars of the 26 running at the finish.
Indeed, and the fun thing to point out, some of those guys didn't even finish the race, and they are classified because there are no more competitors to take the place. So we actually have the 10th place guy, Adrian Rodriguez, takes a point with 2 laps down.
Yeah, in actual fact, we're just going through, actually, there were 2 cars at the end of that race that didn't have brake issues, judging by what we're seeing on the chat. And that was Morgan Moran and Blair Disley. That is it. The rest of them were either driving around with 3 brakes, 2 brakes, or 1 brake, or in some cases, in the case of Martin Gosby and Jim Paresis, none. So that was the situation that we found themselves in with those final laps. Only 2 cars had brakes at the end of that, Chris.
Yeah, and this was really epic to see. And my man of the match, although I'm a Netrex guy, is certainly Carlos Martin. I looked it up, and he started 24th. So he started in 24th position, and he comes across the finish in 70 laps as third. And it's his first podium in WC. So it's a major achievement from him. And yeah, it's just beyond expectation from himself, I'm sure, and this will give a high confidence boost.
So a very good race then, and it's one that's certainly busy in the final race. Went a bit quiet during the middle, in actual fact, Chris, but really came alive there at the end with those breakfasts. And we talked about that at the beginning of the race, the fact that people would probably be trying to boundaries, because they certainly did, and in some cases too far.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we just saw what could be done here, and so many brake failures and accidents. It's just terrifying. But yeah, it has been a remarkable day and a remarkable race, and definitely some race that will live on in our memories for quite a while, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we are going to remember that race for a long time, and it's been a crucial one because it's left Morgan Moran 43 points clear at the top of the World Championship standings now. There are still 7 race weekends to go, so it's very much not done yet, but nevertheless, it's a very strong position to be in, Chris.
Yeah, definitely, and it shows his dominance here this season, and it's nice for him, and I think it's well deserved. He's a guy that has fought so hard over the last couple of years, and he will be happy as most to take home these victories, race after race after race. And well, I think in his case it will only inspire him to go even further and continue with his streak. And it's just a lovely day.
Well, thanks very much for joining me again this afternoon, Chris. Pleasure working with you.
My pleasure.
And to the rest of you, we'll see you again in how many weeks is it till the next race? I've lost count now. I had the calendar on me, and the last 2 laps made me forget.
Yeah, but in the meanwhile, while you look up the calendar, I can surely talk about the FSR Fantasy League, because I think we will see some changes there. Because all of the some of the main drivers didn't finish. Some of the drivers you wouldn't expect to be in the top 5 actually did went to score great results in podiums. This is just spectacular to see what it will do in the stands between the drivers in the FSR Fantasy League. So keep an eye on that. And if you want to participate, just go to the Formula SimRacing Net website. Did you already see when the next race will be?
Yep, 2 weeks' time. So we'll be back at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, as Chris says, get yourself signed up for the FSR Fantasy League. Really is good fun, and you can compete against myself and Chris, who both have teams, I believe. You do have one, don't you, Chris?
No, I will put no comment into that. I should.
So you can compete against us, and quite a lot of the drivers as well actually do have their own teams, or the team managers and things like that. So they all have their little FSR teams. You can see how you would compete against the actual real teams, because the team managers tend to pick their own drivers basically, and it shows you how many points they would have got in the fantasy league. So that is something that you can get yourself signed up for. It's on the main website, www.formulasimracing.net. Just type FSR or Formula Sim Racing into Google if you want to find it easier as well. That works. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time in Silverstone. It's certainly been an interesting day today at Canada. It's been a manic race. It's been a crazy race. But once again, it's in the same outcome with Morgan Moran winning. See you in 2 weeks' time in Silverstone.